Today's show is brought to you by the best sports app in the business, Prize Picks. And right now, they've got a great opportunity for you. You put a $5 lineup down and win, they'll put $150 in your account. All you got to do is use my code HMA or click the link down the description section below. And when you click that, win that $5 lineup, $150 in your account. You've got baseball still flowing good, going strong, though not our Mariners. Football on the horizon where you can get the seasonal picks in. You can get game picks in here with preseason games or even the seasonal picks. Take advantage today. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. And always remember to gamble responsibly. I am very proud to bring back the man, the myth, the legend for another season of the BNB Show. Seahawks, Brendan Nelson back in the building here. Brandon, good to I got it. See, even my thumbs are off right now, man. I'm not even mid-season thumb form here.
Yeah, it's preseason for us too.
It is, man. We got to work our way back up. And folks, if you're not, of course, with Brendan, me and him do this every Thursday, 12 o'clock during season. So you want to get subbed up to him as well. He does daily coverage, uploads daily, multiple uploads daily over there at Seahawks. Brendan Nelson here on YouTube. Brendan, it's great to have you back in the house, though, man.
It's great to be here. And, you know, there's only one way in the NFL to truly have a good offseason. And we just had that good offseason. So I'm feeling good, but I'm ready. I'm ready to try to defend the title.
Yeah, it's been a one where you're in the content creation business. You have time to go quiet and you go, man, don't want to manufacture things to talk about. I'm waiting for some news to come down. And so there's the point where you like to have stuff to talk about that's newsworthy. But a little bit, if I'm to pull into what you're just kind of speaking to a little bit there, that, it has been to the good side of it, to the great side of it, actually very just kind of business as usual with the Seahawks team this offseason. As we've gotten through all the periods we covered with free agency and the draft and into kind of this period where sometimes you get arrests or extensions or trades or tumultuousness or this or that. And instead with us, it was just everything was good to go.
Yeah, although I would not mind an extension or two, to be perfectly honest with you. That would be, I'm shocked that we haven't seen one yet. But overall, it's been good. It's been quiet. It's been chill. It's been the kind of offseason that you want. It's been the kind of training camp that you want. We don't have a bunch of injuries, and there are definitely teams out there that are wrestling with that. Definitely a lot of teams out there that are dealing with some serious injury problems already, some offseason drama. We've been pretty light on it, although we might be bringing a little bit of drama to the building ourselves intentionally. We'll see about that in the coming days, but it's been the right kind of offseason overall, and I'm happy this is the kind of team that I have, that I don't have a team like the Niners with all their injuries or the Panthers with all their injuries or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty happy about it.
Yeah, so I guess in taking a pulse check then from you on this, as far as you're feeling about the potentiality of the very difficult climb, historically speaking, to repeat, that you feel that maybe the team is as good a position as we possibly could hope for any team right now as we walk into this, given those factors at hand on top of the other stuff that we have, playing out. 1 second.
Nope. Okay, no problem. I'll go ahead and wait for him to return here. Just give us one moment, everybody.
Sorry about that. My bad.
Yeah, you were moving like the house was on fire.
Yeah. Well, I think got some issue going on today with something here. So sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, no problem. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about where the team is right now. I'm feeling like that anything's possible, especially after what happened last year. After what happened last year, I think that as a Seahawks fan, you should believe that the sky is the limit with this team. I think you should go into pretty much every game we play expecting to win. Not because we're going to win every game, but because you are at that place where you understand how good the team is and how this coaching staff is able to maximize what they get out of these guys. And overall, I don't see any reason to believe that this team can't do what they did last year again.
Yeah, and it's I think to your point on that a lot of these times the teams ended up on the repeat aspect of it. It's not always that they've gotten into midseason that they've hit the upending or the end of the year or they get this close, that sometimes things start to already pepper in here into training camp that can be problematic. That kind of creates that, starts to sow those oats if you were for that to occur. How you liking Hard Knocks and some of that?
I've never watched Hard Knocks before now. This is my first Hard Knocks, so I didn't really know what to expect, but it's a good package, man. It's a good package. I was wondering how they were going to find entertaining things because we don't have a massive confluence of big personalities. Like I said, I never watched Hard Knocks before, but I remember the year that the Dolphins were on. They had Chad Ochocinco on the team, and there was a lot built around him. You go back to some of these other teams. I think Richie Incognito has been on one of the Hard Knocks teams at least once. So I was wondering, like, how are they going to make this compelling? And so far, 2 episodes in, I think they really have. They found a little bit of intrigue around Derek Hall, and they've found a little bit of intrigue around 1 or 2 other personalities, but you get the sense, and my understanding is this is kind of rare for Hard Knocks, you're getting an inside look at a really, really well-run organization. And sometimes Hard Knocks, my understanding is it gets more into like the clown show, where you look at a bad organization and you get to kind of laugh at how seemingly incompetent they are with the way they're conducting their business. This feels like you're getting an actual little bit of a look into a team that really knows what they're doing. And, you know, that's good. Like you had in the first episode, the talk between Eamon Worry and McDonald. You felt like you were kind of seeing how a coach interacts with a player in a way that is constructive. And maybe you wouldn't get that from a Hard Knocks of a team like the Jets right now, or if you did a Hard Knocks with a team like the Dolphins right now. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, I've thought that you're absolutely right in regards to watching. So I haven't necessarily watched a lot of the prior, just because to your point, tends to be pretty painful to watch. It tends to be drama driven or looks at weird stories you don't care about with the team. I've also been very impressed as you talk about the Mike McDonald conversation. Just didn't think we could be more impressed by the guy that just won you a Super Bowl in the second year. But you do find yourself coming away even more firmer in the place of like, I can't believe this guy's my coach, and I still don't know where this guy's top end lies as far as a coach goes. He seems to be the full meal deal in every way and what he brings to the table. You feel the same way as well?
I can't think of anybody else I'd want to be my coach right now. I'll put it to you that way. Maybe he's not the best coach in football. I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but I can't think of anybody I'd rather have right now. So yeah, it is one of those moments where when we fired Carroll, and we even got on the show and talked about this a little bit, there was always, I think we were both pretty satisfied that they were moving on from Pete Carroll at that point, but there was always that fear that you could end up on a carousel and just not be able to find the right coach, because so many teams do that. But it's kind of amazing that we were able to immediately just find another guy who is this good and this competent, and somebody who seems like he's just going to continue to be great for a long time.
You know, another part of this show that I think has really stood out and has been the vet leadership. As I maintained last year, it's one of the least talked about parts of the team that was needed to be galvanizing as a factor to then allow that final step forward to become truly a contender, not merely a good team or a playoff team or a team that can win a couple games in the playoffs, but you can go out there and go win the big show game. And it took that collection of vets to do it, and having the buy-in of the locker room of the vets, feeling that energy, taking energy, putting it forward. Abraham Lucas talking to the kid out there the other day as a pass rusher, and this is a tackle talking to the guy he's going to go up to in camp and actually trying to help him out and say, hey, you got to stop doing this. It's allowing you to lose the rep on this. You know, everybody got caught up in the Derek Hall's stuff, rightfully so. It was fun stuff with Mike chewing him out and all that other stuff. But one of my favorite actual nuggets was the DeMarcus Lawrence talk with Derek Hall prior to practice. Like, that was the one I was circling, because to me, that one goes back to us talking about Derek Hall coming out of Auburn. And we're going, man, yeah, he loves the bull rush. He's a bull rush maestro. He can bull rush for days, but he's got to develop that secondary move. And here you have DeMarcus Lawrence in that moment going, okay, no bull rushes today. It's going to be the stab or long arm, basically bull rush. And then you're going to come down with the chop. And again, showing the leadership, also cool to see it as a part of what Hall needs to be learning upon.
Yeah, and in the last episode, there was that moment where Leonard Williams talked about how he thought about retiring early when he was on teams like the Jets and the Giants, because football wasn't very fun for him there because the teams were usually pretty bad. And even when they were good, it seemed like the New York environment didn't jive with him. It seemed like that kind of hustle and bustle and the way the media goes after you, it just wasn't his style. And now that he's here, he's talking about how much he loves football again, and it really makes you feel good that he could be playing for a few more seasons, which I definitely want that. I definitely feel like if like there's already been extension talk, but I definitely want to keep that guy around. But to hear him put it that way, talk about how much more he likes football now that he's out of New York, that was cool. And the first episode kind of, I felt like, did a lot in explaining why Cooper Kupp is still here, right? Like, we talked about maybe making him either a salary cap casualty or maybe moving some money around with him, but you hear the way that like JSN was talking about him, and I think Frisman Jackson was talking about him. They really do already look at him as another coach on the field, and that's not just some platitude they're putting out there. They really think that having him out there is a benefit beyond just the numbers.
Yeah, I've maintained it. It makes it well worth the price with him, and he's having by all accounts, a great camp, even a better one than last year than Kupp, and he didn't have a bad camp last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kupp surprises some people that have kind of said, okay, he's done. He's on that downward trajectory, and it's only going to diminish from here. You know, he gets 700 yards this year. It's going to be 500 yards next year or 400 yards next year. And we'll see on this. It'll be the interesting part. But I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in how much he's actually, utilized and a key part of this offense, especially as he came forward in the playoffs for us. Anything else stand out with a Hard Knocks?
Let's see. So going back to, oh, and by the way, just to let everybody know, I actually wrote recap articles for both episodes of Hard Knocks on Seahawks on SI. So if you guys aren't reading me over there, you should get over there now. I post about 2 articles a day on average. So definitely check that out. I've been following Hard Knocks stuff over there a lot. But let's see here. Let me take a look here. The Mitch Johnson thing was interesting because I didn't know about his dad. Did you know about Mitch Johnson's dad?
Yes, but I'm old, dude. So
yeah. I knew a lot of players on that championship Sonics team. I knew Jack Sikma, I knew Freddie Brown, but I didn't know about what's his name, Jack Johnson or.
Yes, I think that was the name. I mean, he was on the back end on that a little bit. I mean, he was a key part of the team, but not, just like you say, not Dennis Johnson or Sikma, who are really those names of that team. Though it was like all Seattle teams, it was really a team collective championship, that one, beyond just star driven.
What'd you think about the Sam Darnold spin segment? I kind of felt like maybe it was interesting. I've never heard of that before. Is that going to be like a new part of our scouting quarterbacks in the draft every year? We got to like have their spin rate.
Well, I will always tend to point to when I see a quarterback that has the wobbly ball, I'm going to point out. I might not note spin rate, or if, you do note when they have a free and easy release, these kind of things can go to that a little bit. You're right. We don't tend to look at it as a forefront item. The key with it is this: power guys with wobbly balls, hard to catch, more drops. I got a power arm, but that thing's coming in like this, it's got that the little duck flutter, not even the Manning where it's like this, but it's just that little, it's got a little bit of that, and it's coming in like that. And it's hard to catch because the ball's already coming in like a seed. I mean, it's got smoke coming off the back of it. And now I've got to try to catch something wobbly when it's coming in like this. I think Nate Tice made a great point of this on Twitter today. Son of Mike Tice, former Seahawks tight end. And that is that when you got a guy with velocity that can actually tighten the spiral up, it actually makes it more easier to catch. The ball's coming in, it just kind of catches into the glove. It's almost like there's more spatial point to the glove's kind of stickiness there to where it traps in. But if there's a little bit of that wobble, or the show talked about, if it's kind of coming in, I think Sam talked about it, if you got it kind of coming in with like a flattened kind of layer to it, it can sort of throw that ability to catch it off. It's why you'll hear coaches talk about throwing a catchable ball. There's never been a quarterback that's thrown a wobbly ball that's thrown a catchable ball. All of them ever existed, Joe Montana on down the line, have all had really tight spirals. So it's really important. You're right. It's something that we probably should think a little bit more about when looking, especially at the strong armed guys. And I think we do a little bit because we'll talk about the mechanics. We kind of touch around the edges of it. It's like you go, well, his mechanics, his replication of delivery is a little bit, you do kind of go around and around a little bit on it, but it does just come down to the point, and the emphasis should be, I want to throw it as hard as I can. I want to be able to layer throws too, but I want to be able to make every throw, to make that throw really hard, cut it through the elements, but then also make it catchable, kind of the trifecta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they spent a lot of time on that too. They really like that, putting the spin on the ball thing. And Cooper Kupp did say, and Cooper Kupp's caught the ball from some pretty good quarterbacks in his career. He did say that he thinks that Sam's spin is making it more catchable. So That guy presumably knows what he's talking about.
I would estimate Stafford, like they show, I think what they really loved about it was that he was so far and away above anybody else on the spin rate, and it caught their imagination. I would estimate, though, that Stafford is very close, or at least in that top 5 to top 3 on that spin rate as well. He's another guy that does a great job with that.
Yeah, and then Jared Goff's had a pretty nice career as well. So there's reason to believe that is actually playing some kind of a role here. So I mean, if Cooper Kupp of all people thinks that it's an advantage, you should probably listen to that guy.
Yeah, well, I think Goff mentioned that too. Yeah, they mentioned the story. Here you got a guy, back foot hit guy, get the ball out guy. Not always going to have the biggest of windows to throw into because there's just by the nature of how he kind of plays and has to be so on time in his approach. A lot of times windows are going to be shrunken down, so he's got to get that ball into the tight spot, but then it's got to also remain catchable. And why you still see him remaining successful, throwing for 4,500 yards every year, whether he goes from Rams to the Lions, and because he can drive in on that skill, and it's a unique one to have.
Other than that, I think the most interesting thing we've seen so far is the thing they kind of left hanging because we don't know the conclusion to it yet, which would be the Terrion Arnold cameo at the very end, like a Marvel movie. They show the next superhero right at the very end. That's kind of what they did to us because, in fairness, they don't know how that story ends because we're waiting to see how it ends in real life. But that was interesting that they actually spent a segment on him. A lot of people were kind of taken aback by that. And you can see that they're not just messing around here. There actually does seem to be some genuine interest in bringing him on board. So I'm interested to see how the next episode tackles that.
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of interest out there in the league, and it makes me wonder about that situation. I'm not also as clear, Brendan, on how the rules will work on this. If the offset language pertains to him, a la Russell leaving the Broncos to the Steelers, veteran minimum, or Kyler Murray right now on the vet minimum deal because it's all offset language. Whatever you're paying extra is just less that the Cardinals have to pay if you're Minnesota. So from Kyler's standpoint, what difference does it make? Is he in that place where it's vet minimum and then it's just a matter of him getting to pick of the teams that are interested in him? I don't know. I'm a little bit foggy on that part of it. I have been a bit surprised from some Seahawks fans' reaction, and I understand, you want to be careful with the guys you bring in, and we have a locker room that you want to be very careful of not to upend that. I understand all those points. If I may just on this a little bit to go on a couple tangents, there's a lot of public hangings going out here in the square. And I see it in the sports world, especially from a lot of sports fans, where you have a guy that's, not gone through the system, not gone through the legal system, not gone through the due process, and they present and they post out with 100% certainty this guy's just dead on guilty. And it's like this mob mentality that exists out there from people at times to want to, throw these guys down that. I get uncomfortable with that type of stuff. I really do. And I think there's got to be some due diligence done here. And we got to sometimes let the legal system decide this rather than the public. That's why the legal system's here. And we don't just do mob justice at every turn. So I get a little bit, I don't understand that part of it. And then when you combine it with the secondary aspect of this, where you're bringing the guy in to be your 5th, 6th corner on the roster. This is a guy that's a first round talent that this team had every bit of interest in. If you didn't take Byron Murphy and you trade back to 24, 25 in that first round, you're probably taking Terrion Arnold in that draft. That's how interested this team is. They've got insider knowledge with Jalen Milroe. They've got insider knowledge with Carl Scott.
Josh Jobe, too.
Josh Jobe. You bring him in, a first-round talent from 2 years ago. You bring him in on a vet minimum deal, single season, single year. And so what's the worst-case scenario here? We lose out on, and look, Dansby's had a great camp. Love that Dansby's doing what he's doing. But okay, we lost Dansby because we kept this and this didn't work out. That's the worst case of that. Not that you're losing money, not that you're losing draft pick compensation. That's the worst possible situation is, the other 6th corner that we could have had on the roster, now we can't have a roster because this guy flamed out. And that still requires him to flame out at that point. I don't see any downside to this whatsoever. This is a market opportunity. This is what NFL teams should be doing. Great NFL teams should be doing and looking for those advantageous places they can to find ways to keep making their roster better. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that if he is signed, John Schneider must have a pretty good feeling that things are not as bad as they initially looked for him, because this is a team that has shown they are sensitive to those kinds of things. This is not the Al Davis Raiders. This is not a team that has shown that they're willing to overlook that kind of stuff no matter what. They are a team that seems to care about that kind of stuff. They are a team that seems to steer away from those things if they believe they're real. And it kind of makes me think of, and I know this is a funny example to bring up because of how it ended up working out, but Quentin Dunbar, there was a point in time in the 2020 offseason where I and most other people thought he was done because the way it was being reported made it look like it was cut and dry, and it wasn't. It wasn't. He ended up actually not having to deal with any real repercussions from that. And I and many others thought that he was dead to rights because of how it was being discussed by people. So that could easily be the case here, where the way in which it's being discussed by people is making it seem really, really bad. But in a couple of months, we may learn it really wasn't. So
that's all I'm saying with it.
Yeah. My understanding is that they had a Zoom meeting today, and his next trial date is going to be like October 5th. So assuming he got through today without anything harsh coming down, at the very least, he'll be eligible to play in the preseason. So I'm open to it. I'm not going to be against it. I will say I'd like it a little bit more if he had actually played better in Detroit, because so far my understanding is that he was pretty awful there. But there is immense talent there. And I remember scouting him in 2024, I think it was, and thinking, yeah, this is a first-round pick talent all day. So you can let Mike get his hands into him and see what happens. I'm going to be open to it.
Detroit's got Wink Martindale syndrome going on with their cornerback position. And what I mean by that is that this team has put plenty of investment into the cornerback position, but what they want to do is put man press on the outside. We're in an era right now where man press is being run with as much infrequency as maybe we've seen in the NFL in the last 25 years. And so the reason teams are doing that is because everybody's getting cooked when they're running press man or running man, period. It's a lot of zone. It's a lot of off coverage zone that teams are tending to run. Detroit's trying to do their own thing. One of the reasons Wink Martindale got moved on for Mike McDonald, because they run the same defense essentially, is because Wink couldn't help himself to blitz, man press things to death. So when you look at Terry and Arnold, I guess my thing with this is the wonder at point is like, is he really at his best as a press man guy? Or is he a guy that should be in this kind of defense where he's doing a lot of hybridic stuff? He's going to spend more time in zone. He's going to spend a lot more time in the off coverage point where he can be a little bit more read and react to what's going on in front of him. I think that he's in better position to do that. And I think that when you look at guys like DJ Reed, who in New York still was maintaining a very high level of play and then goes to Detroit and falls off a freaking cliff. There's some indicators in there about what they're doing with their cornerbacks on that team. Not to mention they got no pass rush outside of Aiden Hutchinson, really.
Yeah. And the other element at play here, and probably one of the reasons why this is coming up, is that Julian Neal's missed a lot of the offseason with that injury. And he was a guy who I think needed the offseason pretty badly because he is a raw player. He didn't play that much in college. He only had the 1 year at Arkansas. Before then, he was at a smaller school. So I think if there was an intention of having Julian Neal be a significant part of the team as a rookie, they might be rethinking that. Like, this isn't like Bud Clark, who was a starter for 6 seasons at TCU and played in like 60-something games and almost all of them starts. I think you look at Julian Neal now where he is, having missed basically 2 weeks of camp, and you're like, this might be kind of a redshirt year for him, and you don't want to put him in a position where you need him to do a bunch of stuff. So bringing in somebody like Arnold insulates you against that.
Yeah, good point. And I gives you a very talented guy to do so, whereas normally you're picking over guys right now that are, fringe NFL roster guys at this point. So it's a big difference in what you have in the lay of land, and that's why there's so many teams that are kicking the tires on the guy. So I think it's a smart move. You can go get market opportunities. That's what building championships. You've got to find those places where not everywhere you're spending max prices at every turn. You got to find the places where you can get some discounts, and this is one of the spots.
Yeah, and look, if they get in there and they get a bad feeling about it, if they feel like things aren't going to go his way with the legal system, then I'm sure they'll reassess. But if they're interested, I have to believe it's because they have a good feeling about how this is going to go.
Agreed. And because you got that insider knowledge with some of those guys on this roster that know this kid, I like the idea of too. You're just getting him all the way out of that area and all away from those people, and you're out the farthest place you got in the country where you can just lock in and ball and get in on the process, connect back in with Jalen like you did back at college. I think you can definitely get this back in the right place, in the right direction of things. Let's get to a couple of donations here. Matthew 1283, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, "What player are you most excited for in the preseason?
I'll say Riley Mills. Because he's apparently been great in camp. And if he becomes like a significant asset this year for the team, that interior becomes unstoppable. You've got Big Cat, Murphy, and then you've got Mills acting as like a rotational pass rusher up the middle. Nobody's got an interior like that. Not even the Eagles at that point, do I think. Do they have an interior like us?
Yeah, it is literal waves at that point. It's not theoretical waves or we just really like our guys in the second wave thing. It's no, the guys legitimately in our second wave, Jaron Reed and Riley Mills could be starting as a tandem for a lot of NFL teams.
Mhm.
So that's what you get to send to teams constantly 24/7 every game. And it's very handy on top of the fact, just a young guy developing on the rise and how that just fits in so nicely, doesn't it? With the kind of timeline of contracts, the timeline of guys like Leonard Williams reaching into the end of their career at the time they will, the way you can just kind of the fluid handoff.
I think we pretty much know Reed's going to retire at the end of the season. I'd be shocked if he didn't. So it's going to move in and out. It's going to work really well.
Yeah, seamless transition. I'll go with Arroyo because I am hopeful and that he's had a great camp. You saw that tasty a route that he ran this past week, I'm sure on the training camp where he did the little out up and then cut it back on in, showing off some nice little nifty footwork for a guy his size. Yeah. So I'm hoping they got some features for him, that Fleury's kind of put some stuff together. Let's get this guy featured a little bit. I don't care who the quarterback is, Locke, Milrow, whatever. Like, let's feature a little bit of Arroyo here on some of these routes. Let's get him up the seam maybe a little bit and see how it looks there, with especially get some cover 2 looks and no middle field linebacker. So I'd like to go there. And a little bit of Horton as well.
Yeah, I could go for that. I don't know if Barner's 100%. I think he's still kind of like not completely over the toll of last season physically. So if Arroyo can step up, he's got an opportunity to make some hay in this offense, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I think they're managing and taking care of AJ, I think, as much as anything, just really understanding because of the long season, then the surgery and all that, which smart approach. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $2 donation. 15-2. You heard it here first. Go Hawks, #repeat. Ooh, I like 15-2, man. That's got a tasty sound to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that might be what it takes to win the division, by the way. Like, this could be a Minnesota-Detroit 2024 situation where you might need to win 15 games to win the division. And it's brutal, but looking at the schedule, I believe the team has the potential to do it. I know we won the Super Bowl last year, and traditionally that always gives you a brutal schedule, but I look at it and I think that's kind of a normal schedule to me. I don't see anything here that makes me want to just crawl into a hole and hibernate until next season. So I'm going to believe that it's possible.
No, I thought things set out really well for us. 22,000 miles to be flown when normally we're probably around 32 to 33,000 miles. That part was great. No gauntlets in the schedule, only 2 10 a.m. games. I thought everything was really separated out nicely where, there's some tough parts, but there's no impossible parts. There's no that's definitely 2-3 losses in there. I think it's well suited. I think you're right. Might need to be up to that point because I do think, and the NFL acknowledged this with the scheduling, that it's going to come down to probably us and the Rams once again. Like, this is the way the story is going to unfold. So strap in and get ready. And I hope we got home field advantage with 15-2. I hope the Rams aren't at 17-1 at that point or 16-1 at that point. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be tough.
Yeah. We're going to need them to drop at least a game in the first 6 weeks because they're probably getting that Puka and Alaric suspension. And that's their tough schedule segment. Like, when they have, what do they play in the first 6 weeks? They got the Niners, they got Denver, they got like that first 6 weeks for them is really tough. And then things get pretty soft. So we need somebody to beat them in that first 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, Puka's got to add glass doors to the potential pitfalls now in front of him. You know what I mean? You heard about that today too, right? So
what an off season.
Was he thrown through the glass door? Did he drunkenly run face first into it? It's hard to give the guy the benefit of the doubt when you've had an off season of chewing on ladies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know. I mean, the guy used to play for the Huskies, so I've always kind of had this little affinity for him. I've always had an appreciation for him. I didn't know he was like this. And you think going to BYU, that would straighten you up, right? You think going to BYU for a couple years, that would get you clean, but apparently it just made him crazy.
I'll tell you too, I think the Rams are playing a dangerous game this year. You talk about the need to win these games. I agree with you. You got to win every last one of them. and they've walked in without 4 contract extensions they've handed out. With Young and Avila and all the Puka and all the mix, there's 4 legitimate monster contracts they have to get out extension wise, and they're not giving them out and playing this cute game. And they're like, "We'll give it to you next year." Okay, but like I think what happens to that, Brendan, and what you have with the NFL level with these guys that have millions of dollars at stake, tens of millions of dollars at stake, that guy's groin starts to get a little bit twingy. You know what I'm saying? Like my hamstring starts to get a little bit tight. You know what I mean? Like I'm on the line of being able to play in a game or not with an injury. I am playing. I'm going to make sure this thing's 100% before I come back because I don't have a contract after this year. There are no guarantees for me. You think that that's an element at play here with the Rams, or that they're going to pull off some wizardry and just bury everything into void year city and get these deals done?
I imagine they'll go into void year city. I imagine that they're going to be willing to do that if that's what it takes. Although that may not be enough. And I do wonder if they're going to lose at least one of those 4 players in free agency next year. I don't think you would let all 4 of them drag into the offseason just to bring them all back anyway. That would not make a lot of sense to me because, as we've discussed before, the longer you wait, the more you pay. And we know the cap is going to go up. And I mean, Christian Gonzalez is already kind of doing this, and we're probably going to start to see more players do this where they're trying to future-proof their contracts because they don't want to sign a contract that becomes not that impressive after 6 months. And the longer you wait, the more they're going to push for that. I look at what the Rams are doing, and I'm like, somebody's going to get let go. I don't know who, but they're not going to re-sign all 4 guys. They're going to lose at least one of those guys for nothing or very little because of the comp pick thing. So I think they've kind of made their bed with the fact that they're going to lose some of their young talent because of Myles Garrett, and they consider that worth it. But it is kind of weird they're not doing any of them. You'd think at least one of them they would feel like, yeah, we can commit to that guy long term. That's clearly a guy we want to have for the next decade.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment of it. I do. It's just that it does to me feel like, okay, with that, like pressure for this season, mounts on top of you at this point, all that much more in a way that does not on us. I mean, that we feel like we have way more territory to work with here. And then just again, you get at least one done because there is only one franchise tag. So it's like, okay, I'm losing 1 or 2, but like you've got the potential of losing all 4 on the table. Save the one that you don't franchise, and then you got to hope that that guy's okay playing on the franchise tag if you can't get a deal done with him. It's kind of a precarious place to head into for guys that are all, I can make the argument, all these guys, Kobe Turner and Avila, like these are foundational guys in what you do in your program. They're not maybe Garrett as far as sparkling star power, but they are fundamental to the program.
Yeah. I think maybe they've just kind of made their bet on it being an all-in for this season bid, and then after this year, they'll probably not be able to get back up that mountain again, and they've kind of made they've accepted that on some level. I don't know, but it does kind of feel like they are focused more on the present rather than the future, and maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe that's not a bad thing, but it does put you in a really rough spot if you don't actually climb that mountain.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And I think you're right. I think that's definitely where they're kind of off. I think they made their peace. They're not going into this blind. But I don't think you'd be in the same place. I wouldn't want my team to go this way. Like this would not be my.
Yeah. I'm irritated enough with the fact that we haven't extended Witherspoon and Big Cat yet, and that's 2 guys, and that's a little different than what the Rams are doing because they've only got 1 year left on all of those guys. We've got 2 years left on Witherspoon, but I still want to get that done. So believe me, that's not how I would want my team to do it, but I don't know. Maybe they feel like Avila is like replaceable because they feel like their system makes offensive linemen look better than they are. That would be one thing that I think about. Other than that, I can't really make sense of it.
No, I can't either. And I think you touched on it. I think that they're just more amping up for one particular year, saying, let's juice it. Maybe there's a little bit of thinking in Stafford, despite what people are saying, he's going to play multiple years. If he just gets that one Super Bowl, he'll be done. And they're understanding that there's a little bit of that play. We'll see how it goes with it, but been a little bit odd. I mean, look, they're good to them. Like you said, I don't knock them for it. It's one that would make me very uncomfortable setting the stage up for just one particular year. I'm all about going for it. I'm all about letting the dogs loose and going crazy, but like, don't take it over the top to where you put yourself in a position of just, you don't have to necessarily, I guess, is the way I'll say it. Peter, we got a donation from you too as well. Let me just give a thank you here to the sponsor of the show. Sponsor of the show is Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports app. And when you use both, me and Brendan's code right now. Brendan, you're on HMO too, right? We got HMA for both of us here, so you don't have to pick between codes between me and Brendan. We both got the same code. Click the link down in my description section below as well if you want to do that. It's just an easier path. And we put a $5 lineup down. They will put and you win that lineup. They will put $150 into your account. So you play $5, you win, you get $150 in the account. You got the overs, you got the unders, you got somewhat of the, what I would call almost, for lack of a better defining word, kind of the freebie sort of picks there, where they make it where it's just easier to build your ticket up a little bit better. Baseball in full swing. I know the Mariners are doing bad, but hey, you can take advantage of that. Right? Go out there and get yourself in. All in on the strikeouts, right, Brendan? All in on the lack of hits, and you are going to win yourself some money. Let me tell you. We got the seasonal picks as well up here coming up. I've got on mine Jackson Smith going over 1,300 yards. Jacoby Myers going over 750 yards. Brendan, do I get your stamp of approval on these seasonal picks?
I'm good with it. I like it, although I am a little bit wary of Shaheed having this monster season. I think that he could end up like wrecking some of that just with his own just by becoming a much better receiver than a lot of us expect, but it looks pretty good to me. I would probably take the over on both of those too.
It was a tough one for me. I just kept back to he's just so good, but you're right. There's going to be a lot of guys biting at that passing apple this year, Brendan, and not necessarily a lot of passing attempts for those bites to be had. So use this code, go out there, take advantage today. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. Always remember to gamble responsibly. And yes, in the state of Washington, there are still some limitations when it comes to doing these kind of picks. But if you actually go into a casino, and there's plenty of casinos in the state of Washington all over the place, and you operate on their network, you can use their app in full. So use Prize Picks today. Go win yourself some money. Put your sports knowledge to the test. And a big shout out to them for sponsoring both me and Brendan this upcoming NFL football season. Got some more donos here, Brendan. Peter Cohawks with a secondary dono. Thank you for the double dip, Peter. You're awesome for that, my man. Says, I have a feeling this team wants revenge for 2014. Can't wait to rename SoFi Stadium to CFI Stadium. It's going to be epic. It's going to be an epic year, boys. Let's have it go. Go Hawks.
I don't know how much this team thinks about 2014 because we don't have any of the players from that team. All we have is a GM, right? That's the only guy who's here from that team. But look, I mean, you want to repeat, right? You want to defend the title. That's part of winning a title, I think, is defending it. Not necessarily repeating, but going out there and playing well and having a good season and proving that it wasn't a fluke, that it wasn't a mistake, that you won. And there have been many examples throughout history of teams that win the title, feel like they got disrespected. And I feel like the Seahawks team is probably on that list at this point, and it motivates them to go out and prove to the world that, no, this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. We did this because we're that good. So I do think that there is going to be that chip on your shoulder stuff this season with this team, because I've made some videos about it, and usually I don't talk about this kind of stuff, but it was so overwhelming. I felt like I had to, where this team wins the Super Bowl after going 14-3, and it feels like people haven't really caught up to that yet. They're not operating in the world where that is happening. So you look at the Madden ratings, you look at Pro Football Focus player rankings, you look at ESPN rankings. It feels like we're not talking about a team that won the Super Bowl last year after winning 14 games. So I think the team is going to take that personally, and I think we're going to see it motivate them on into 2026.
Yeah, but Brendan basically touches on exactly where I think of this too, is that I don't know if it's a revenge for 2014. I do say that I think, Peter, you fell from the players like Marshawn, as you really like, that the LOB guys definitely took some, like it was, I don't know for the word I'm trying to think of here, but it was very nice for them. Like they really reveled extra, especially in the way that broke down with the Patriots, and that it did feel like it closed a bit of a book for them on or wound, let's say, that had been open for a little bit of time. But I do think the revenge energy is going to be there for just what the reasons Brendan just spoke about, which is that me and him have watching this team for so many years. We had a chance to go through the Super Bowl run with the Legion of Boom, Brendan, and if you're free to correct me on this, but that team was celebrated and loved nationally and looked at as, wow, they're so special and awesome in winning the Super Bowl and yada yada. And that there was none of this sort of feeling coming back that next year into 2014 of like, man, does nobody notice us? But this year's been night and day different. And it has been wild. I'm with you. I'm not one to normally pull this card out, but when it becomes so ever present and just at every turn and every other day, there's a new analyst nationally speaking to the, luck, fluke, 2-point conversion, but and you're just going, dude, everybody outside of like Seattle's got this general, even a Bucky Brooks, who's normally a guy that's very pro Seattle organization. He was a scout in the Seattle organization, worked with John Schneider, seeing his former guy go out there and get the ultimate, achieve the ultimate success. And even he's, drinking the Kool-Aid, Brendan. So I think you're on it with that, man. I do. And I think it will be a motivating force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was I think it may have been one of the Celtics teams that won in the 70s. So this was not Larry Bird. This wasn't Bill Russell. This was in the era between those two that won the title. And a lot of people thought it was kind of, a BS title. They didn't really respect it that much. And the next year, the Celtics didn't repeat, but they did make a playoff run. And after one of the playoff series that they won, one of the players stood up. It might have been, maybe it was JoJo White, and stood up and said, well, we just taught them that they didn't give us these rings by a mistake. And that's what it's about. It's about proving that, no, it wasn't an accident. And we'll prove it even if we don't repeat. And I hope this team repeats, and I think they can. But even if they don't, there is a way to defend your championship with honor.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think they're taking it, the spirit so far, everything we've seen from Hard Knocks, what we've heard from the offseason and the participation once again in offseason OTAs was through the roof once again. And it seems like they are feeling that energy and bringing it as you'd hope. And this is an important thing because I think you can sometimes take a little bit of the temperature of a team coming into training camp and start to feel them feeling themselves. Oh, ego's starting to burst out at the seams here a little bit, getting a little bit of a sense of clicks developing, maybe a little bit of in-house this, in-house that. And that's not been the case at all throughout this training camp. It's going to come back to the point of just, it's all been steady as she goes, man. Hit that cruise control button. You've got the standard in place, keep it, hold it, and let's keep this thing rolling. So it's been interesting, but you going with CFI on the stadium? I'm Hawks House on Levi. I'm landing firm on that forever. In fact, that's might be the last time I ever refer to as Levi, just to give you clarification. It's Hawks House as far as I'm concerned for now, till infinity, unless they win in our house a Super Bowl, and then absent that, no.
Yeah.
So CFI, going CFI.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like it. Yeah. I'll go for it. I can go for that. But we got to win there first, right? We got to win there first.
We do, but you got to put the blueprint down. You got to put the plan in place up ahead of time so you know the markers to hit. HHG, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for that. Mike was sus on just thinking of going after Terry and Arnold on Hard Knocks. I felt the same way a bit. Did you? What would you feel on the body language? Give me your psychological Dr. Nelson body language expert.
I would assume that during a scene like that, he's working from the perspective of what the public knows about the case, where it looks really bad. And right now it does look really bad. I will admit, like what was it? A kidnapping, or what are they calling it? Yeah, it's a kidnapping. Like, it sounds really bad, but that could just be him accepting the public perception of it right now, which is hard not to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but he might feel differently if he knew that the circumstances weren't as bad as what they're being portrayed right now, which time will tell. So I think the body language was kind of odd, but I think it's understandable.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it right, HHG. I felt the same thing, that there was a little bit of reticence there on his part going, I don't know. But he also loves his guys, and he's been training up these guys, and guys like Dansby and by all accounts, Pritchett and Igbenogany have been really good camps and done really well here. And so, he's going, okay, what am I bringing in versus what I know I've got? And you're always going to love your guys there a little bit. So I'm sure he'd be on board. Certainly John is, because I think for John, it's just nothing's going to make him go from 6 to midnight, like the thought process of getting a first round talent for peanuts. I don't give up draft capital. I don't give him a big contract. I just grab that guy off the street. It's like hell to the yes, and I'm with him on it. This stuff's, you got to pay max prices at every turn, Brendan. At every turn. You want to get the good stuff? You want McDuffie, first round pick. You want Garrett, all the price. And then there's a new contract. And then there's a new contract for McDuffie, right? I can get something for cheapy creepy that's very talented and very young, I got to be open to it as an organization.
Yeah, and look, if you're going to be a GM and this is your job, I think you should be turning over every rock, even if you know there's a very, very low chance you're going to actually pick up what's under that rock. Like if Josh Allen hit the trade block tomorrow, I don't think we'd trade for him for obvious reasons, but I'd still expect Schneider to make a call and be like, hey, what are you guys looking for? What's going on? Who's in on this? Just to see what's up. Even if you don't think you're going to get involved in it, why not?
Yeah. And he's, as like to your point, as much of a I'm in on every kind of situation type of general manager as anyone in the league. And you want that. This is the ideal. Not that you pull the trigger every time, but you're just always knowing what the parameters are. So you don't have some deal that comes down the line like a Scooble with baseball where you're like, oh, that's all that took to get that done. Like, not that I wanted Mariners to do that, but just point being that you don't want that type of situation to happen where you just decided that, the cost will be just too much. Or like the Mariners did with Ohtani and just saying, we're not even going to try to, well, you could have put that structure of a contract together. Like that was doable. We wouldn't have blown your budget up to do that, but that's another conversation for another time.
Yeah. And it's your job. It's your job. Like what else are you going to do? What else do you have to do that's so important that you can't be involved in major or even minor trades and roster moves across the league?
Yeah. Amen. I love that about John. One of the things makes him one of the best general managers in the sport. John Naylor, thank you for the $5 donation. Over the last 30 years, Hawks have had Holmgren, Carroll, and McDonald. Any other team blessed by that string of top leaders? Okay, one more a year. Yikes. That was the sacrificial year. That's all that was. That was like the Aztecs once had to do, so too did we have to do Tamora. That was the requirements to keep the chain alive, Brendan.
Yeah, we were obligated to give him a chance after 2008, I think. I think that was like the setup they had in mind, but obviously the example would be the Steelers, right? Because they've had 3 coaches over a billion-year span, and all 3 of them did fairly well at the very least, right? Obviously, I think that by the end, Steelers fans were pretty sick of Tomlin, and most of them would have rather have seen him get fired 5 or 6 years ago. But that would be the main thing that is comparable, right? But other than that, I can't think of another NFL franchise that has had that type of run because, the Patriots had the 1 year of, what was the guy's name?
Parcells.
No, not the guy they had before Vrabel, like 2024, the year they won.
Oh, Mayo.
Games. Yeah, they had the Gerard Mayo year. Other than that, they've been pretty strong for a while now. Other than that, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I think you're onto something here, John, where to your point on this, even with Tomlin's not a Hall of Famer right now as it currently stands, right?
If Holmgren
they haven't had a playoff win since 2017.
If Holmgren's not in, I don't think Tomlin should get in.
Yeah, I think Holmgren gets in at some point though, because Holmgren's got like way more on the resume and two Super Bowl appearances and then a Super Bowl appearance with Seattle. 1 win, 2 different programs though that you turned around, not just one. And Tomlin, he did a good job, but he inherited Cowher's stuff there.
Doesn't Holmgren have 2 from San Fran when he was the OC, or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, well, he was the OC there. So yeah, I think you're absolutely on it there with that. That's, you got to put that on there on top of it. And like you say, he's not in. My point being on this is that Holmgren's going to get in, Carroll's going to get in, and McDonald's on a trajectory potentially to get in. So I think John's a little ahead of this on this where, you talked about it out loud, even the Patriots. Yeah, it's Belichick to Vrabel. We'll see with Vrabel, but like, I can't go through any other organization that could stack basically 3 coaches in that kind of alignment back-to-back, 3 Hall of Famers essentially back-to-back in that way. The Raiders did Madden to Flores, but then they didn't have the third. You can find a lot of 1-2ers, but you can't find the 1-2-3 where there's that third component to bringing it in. It's hard to hire a good coach to get that many back-to-back. That's a great point by John there. And it's kind of cool.
What's the worst 3 coaches in a row though? Would that be like
something the Giants with the mustache man,
McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, and then Joe Judge?
Was it Joe Judge? There we go.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. And then they did Daboll, who was pretty bad too. Actually,
yeah, I was gonna say you could go 4 on this. You could go 4 stack deep on this one with that. It's basically after Coughlin onwards to right now, and we'll see with Harbaugh. So there's definitely plenty of ones that get them wrong back to back. But just tells you again, smart this organization is, how great the
Yeah.
ownership is, how great the committee is that they've put together to help out on these kind of decisions, the process to go find these guys. Fantastic.
Yeah, somebody in chat said Cleveland, but the thing is, Stefanski's good. Like, I think Stefanski's a good coach. He kind of ruins the combo. Yeah, it's hard to string together a long string of incompetency in Cleveland because Stefanski was good for them.
You'd have to go back, I think, before maybe the 3 stack before Stefanski.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where you're getting into the
Freddie
one
Kitchens.
former Patriot coach.
Yeah.
Was Marvin Lewis there for a minute?
No, did they have Eric Mangini? I think I want to say
Mangini was there. It was Mangini. He was one, and then
Freddie Kitchens was there for 1 year. They had some other guy, Baker's rookie year. I can't remember who it was now, but I mean,
he was that one live wire OC. He was that crazy OC that was like
Hugh
pissed
Jackson?
all of his players off.
Was it Hugh Jackson?
Might have been not. Well, there's another one too. I'm thinking of the former Steelers OC, but I can't remember his name.
We had Mike Patine, Rod Chudzinski, Pat Shermer. Okay, no, Cleveland's got a pretty good streak if you go before Stefanski.
They might go 7 deep on that streak as far as just horribleness. It's like that's almost impressive to get it that wrong, that consistently bad. It's not like these guys ever go on to do other, like none of these guys are like the situation that happened with for instance, like Saban with Belichick in Cleveland, where they were both on the same staff in Cleveland and it just ended up working out because of stuff outside of Belichick's control. But then Belichick goes on to do this other stuff over here. Carroll, likewise with the Jets and what he does with Seattle. But like none of those guys you look at with the Browns, or if we look at the Giants, the Judges, or the McAdoos, like nobody went on to like, then he finally found his footing years later and like, no, they were bad choices that then didn't ever do anything beyond that.
All right. So
Hassan with a $2 donation on your side. The Derek Hall shorts are crazy work.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't know what to think about that because no one else is wearing them, right? He's the only one.
I bless him. Like, and in the summertime, it's one thing to be committed to that, but like Pacific Northwest, you can go about 3 months a year with shorts, and then you're like, you better have some heat tolerance. You're walking around, and they say he's all the time in that, so it's like, oof. Bless him for that. I'd be freezing my ass off, man.
Does seem like he's strapped in for a big season, though. I'm feeling pretty good about Derek Hall 2026.
I am too, man. We know with these pass rushers, they take time to develop, and it's something that makes me hesitant to want to go back to the second round range to take a guy, is because you have to kind of wait for the pie to bake. But once it does bake, a lot of times now you're getting the player in full bloom and they're actually a real factor, and they can go out there and, I mean, we're talking now press into that sort of double-digit sacks, be above average against the run, realize that potential as a player. And I think you're right. I think he's right there, ready to go in that realm. Part of the reason that they reward him is I think they're anticipating the same thing. Seth K. Aloha with another $5 over on your side. Puka is an amazing player, but I'm so thankful having JSN. Humble player that stays out of trouble even after winning the Offensive Player of the Year. Appreciate you guys. Oh, thank you for that, Seth.
Well, he was pretty stoned at the QFC the other day, JSN. So I hope he didn't do anything. You haven't seen the picture? It was all over X. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. He was at a QFC at like 1 a.m. and he was very clearly high out of his mind. But I guess he didn't do anything, or else we would have heard about it. So that's good. But it is. It does feel like we're in a better spot now. I mean, there's a reason why we extended JSN and the Rams haven't extended Puka, and we can say that the Rams are not extending Puka because they're being stupid. But I don't know if that is stupid or not. I think that there's a very good reason why you might want to hold back your extension to him right now.
Yeah, I can get where they're coming from as well. And look, Puka's given them ammunition to be able to pull this move, right? Including like this glass door incident that happens now. He comes in with some like this, like walks into the facility now with like a gash on his face. And it's like, what is this now, Puka? So they've, he's definitely given them plenty of reason to, but I love JSN. I love the fact that he structured the contract. I'm really hoping Witherspoon's willing to do something similar where it's like, look, we'll get you to your APY, but then we're going to juice this out. We're going to put the numbers out in a place that's just going to be really advantageous for the team to make this happen. And it's one of the places that why his deal got done was because he was willing to do that. Doesn't get a lot of credit for it because I think people just get caught up in the APY part of the deal. It is the cool new thing, Brendan, that we're noticing now as a development in the NFL, where it used to be get the 5th round option, get the 1st round contract first round guys, you can get the 5th-year contract option to have more time to decide what you're doing with the guy or wait that long time to pay him. Now, actually, what it's become is it's get them on the first round contract so that when they outperform the rookie deal by the 3rd year, you can stack the new extension on the last 2 years of the
Right.
Contract. This
Right.
is the new du jour, isn't it?
Absolutely. And yeah, it's I've read a lot of stuff this offseason about how the JSN deal is actually a lot nicer than it immediately jumps out to you as being, because everyone talks about the extension, but some people forget to talk about the 2 years that were already on the deal. And that stuff's really important, because we also understand that when he gets to the back end of that deal, he's going to either going to get extended again or get let go or traded or whatever, depending on what happens over the next several years. So it's not as if we're going to get to that final couple years of the deal where he's getting this ridiculous cap hit and we're just going to be handcuffed to it. There are going to be ways to maneuver around that. So absolutely, it's a great contract structure, and I'm really happy that it came together that way.
Yeah, it's a fantastic deal for Seattle. And Derek Hall extension was a fairly discounted deal from where it like the Lucas deal. We might come to find that a year from now if he goes out there and gets 10 sacks and plays that above average run defense, and you're getting what you're getting on his APY versus what, let's say, Young's going to get 3 times probably the price per year on his next extension next year being Byron Young. That'll look like a pretty nice deal to us too at that point as well.
Right, and that's pretty much how it always goes, right? Especially with this team, it seems like this team does a pretty good job of that. Like, it took us, 2 months to start feeling really good about the Rashid Shaheed contract, because then we saw who was the guy the Packers extended, Christian Watson, to significantly more money than Shaheed, even though Christian Watson's never really done anything. You look at what the Patriots gave, I think, Romeo Doubs, I think it was.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay, that's just how it is now. Well, then I'm totally cool with giving $17 million a year to Rashid Shaheed. So if you feel bad about an NFL contract, just wait a couple months. You won't feel too bad about it.
No, but I also think that this team does more of a proactive job at signing their players and getting ahead of contract situations better than many other teams. I mean, the Niners, for instance, they've got a Bosa bomb coming down the line. And I don't think John would put himself in that same kind of predicament the way that he would structure contracts, and that, now you've got just a weird situation where it's basically in a lame duck year on this because it will be a cut for them. They don't have the money to do $55 million per year from next year on the hit. So their hand is a bit forced. John doesn't get himself into a position of really ever usually having the hand forced, and that's because he's so proactive.
Right. You think Bosa plays week 1?
Well, I do, because this is the problem with this, is that he's got to generate his value for the extension that he wants to get after this year or get rewarded right now. Like, there were some content creators, the Niners were wondering a little bit about this tendonitis being, knee, tend to me some money, maybe it was more of that. And I probably not, maybe it's legit. He's coming off the ACL. You do get this kind of stuff happening, but if you're in his position, right, Brendan, and you're going to want to try to get a $35 million a year contract, your last big swing deal, you're not going to get that by sitting on the bench a multitude of games. You're going to have to get out there. And, is it rotational? Is it that he only has 20 snaps a game that he's out there for those 4 or 5 games, something like that? Yeah. I think that the big problem for the Rams, as you look at it for them, man, is Alaric Jackson's got a real, and Puka as well. Both could be suspended for that game. And the Rams have built themselves up like a glass tower on popsicle sticks, where they don't got any depth behind their frontline guys. Like, all of them immediately reacted to Brendan the second that they heard about Alaric Jackson's suspension. They all started to desperately, rather than look at their own roster and go, oh, we got this guy here, we'll be fine. They instantly went, how about Conklin? Is he really retired? Is he retired, or is he just kind of soft retired? You go, that speaks to your guys' lack of faith, and you're right to think it. You don't have the depth. Only Devontae Adams out there week 1 with Xavier Smith and Jordan Whittingham. Is that, there's no more even Tutu Atwell. It was kind of functional at times. Like, even he's gone. So I still think that could end up offsetting that stuff big time, even if a Bosa was, not up. But what do you make of I'm flying the day before into Australia?
There must be some logic behind it, but it doesn't make any sense to me. I would assume they're not just doing it randomly. Somebody in that building has to think that's the right way to do it. But I don't know what it could be. And the Niners clearly feel the complete opposite way about it. So somebody's wrong.
Yeah, somebody's going to be on the bad side of it. And I think they had success doing it last year with going to Britain and beating the doors off Jacksonville. They did the day before thing there with that. But like, it's kind of a different trip going to Australia than just simply popping across the pond over there to, England, I would feel like. I mean, like you're going literally across the world.
Yeah. I don't really get that one. Maybe give Andrew Whitworth a call. He's only been retired for 4 years, right?
They were also saying that. That was also the first thing that they were saying is like, well, maybe, so yeah, that's going to get desperate there really quick if they get a couple of injuries at certain spots because they don't have the depth to build in for it.
And I do think the standard for the NFL in these situations is a 6-game suspension. I don't know if they're going to do that here, but traditionally when somebody gets in trouble for off-field stuff like that, and then they get off legally, Goodell still comes in and gives them 6 games. So if they go that way, and then you've got that gauntlet in the first 6 games, that sets you back significantly.
It does. I think Puka gets 2. I think you're right. He's also, remember the lyric, a multiple time offender. So this is his second time getting hit, getting clipped. And that's going to draw to your point, the auto 6 suspension when it clicks in my opinion. And I think they're prepared for this and they know it's coming in. You talk about the long season, that gauntlet, you're right about that. Say nothing of you're trying to protect Matt to the ultimate right now. And if you get him injured early in the year, you got something like that comes up because you don't have an Alaric Jackson. Like, this is where we say, like, I can definitely see the pathway of the Rams getting to a championship, but I can also see where there's plenty of pitfalls and trapdoors that exist in the way that they've constructed this thing. And that's as easily to be the reality of anything else as well.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm interested to see it.
We got me dropping $100 donation. Let's go. Thank you so much for that. I also want to give a big shout out to me for coming in, dropping a $500 donation on my charity stream a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I got a chance or you heard me give you the kudos for that, me, but you were just tremendous for doing that, man. Thank you to everybody as we were able to raise well over $1,000 there for charity. You guys are just the best fan base out there in that way. And you along with that, me. Is you the man, B? You too, B. Love you guys. Go Hawks. Go 12s. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate your support for both of our channels as you've been a long time contributor here, man. And helping keeping our lights on, as I like to say out there. But appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Very kind, man. Very kind, man. That $500 donation drop was just incredible the other day, man. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $5. Says, what's your guys' hot take on this season? I say we sweep the NFC West. Triple dip.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. I do think we'll sweep the Niners, though, because I feel like the Niners are going to kind of have the season from HE double hockey sticks here. I'm not really feeling too good about their 2026 prospects right now. You're already starting to see the seeds settle in of the season from hell. So,
you know what that noise is?
It's in their heads. It's in their heads now. I mean, even if it's not real, it's in their heads.
It's becoming a real thing. It's like that creature that you can create by just imagining it with a collection of people. I forget what it's called. There's like an old school term for it. You get a bunch of people come together and try to create a little goblin thing or something. That's what it's become. You know what I'm talking about. I forget there's a name for it, but there's like it's not like
I know what you're talking about. But okay, hot take on this season. If you're just talking about the Seahawks. I think Rashid Shaheed's going to get over 850 receiving yards. I think he's going to actually have a better season than most people seem to think. If you're talking about the league, is it a hot take to say that I think Houston wins the AFC?
No, because they're looked at as like a lot of people as a Super Bowl favorite.
Okay. I need a hot take here. What's a hot take? I think no, they did that last year, so that's not really even a hot take. I don't know. I'm a little light on those right now, I guess. I'm thinking about it. I kind of like the maybe I'd go with the Cowboys to win the NFC East. That would be an interesting hot take.
I like it. That's definitely got some singeing to it there. I would go to once again doubling down and building off of my success of last year and predicting that the Chiefs would not make the playoffs and saying that I once again believe that the Chiefs are not going to make the playoffs. I think that there's as much as anything, it's beyond Reed or Mahomes. I think it's just there's some roster diminishment there. I don't think that they've ever really solved the wide receiver conundrum after Tyreek Hill has left. I think they lost a lot of defensive talent this offseason without having ready-made replacements in-house and good to go. So I'm going to go to that one. I would say would be, my main hot take there. I do think we're going 5-1 against this NFC West. I'm with Brendan on this. I think you split with the Rams. I do think you sweep the Niners. I do think you sweep the Cardinals. So, which will help to set us up well here for the rest of the schedule to go and get that number one bye if we can get to that. So I do feel that way. I don't have a lot of super hot takes because I fit to pretty much form on looking at, I do think Houston's going to be the Super Bowl representative from the AFC. Who do you have on the AFC?
I'll go Houston.
So we're both on line. I'm Houston as well there. So, I think that they're well constructed. I've liked their offseason. I think they got the offensive line finally in place for CJ to be able to get some things done. So, I'll go with that. I've got my comeback player of the year as CJ too. I think you finally get to see him with his receiving core in place, grade A defense, running game improvement, Montgomery, and the offensive line is probably as good as it's been since he's walked in the door there. I think he kind of is your comeback player of the year for me.
How many games did Joe Burrow play last year? Let me check something here.
Like 11, wasn't it?
8. So if he stays healthy and has a big season, it'd be tough to beat out Burrow as comeback player of the year because I think the Bengals are going to be at least decent this year because they fixed the defense at least a little bit.
That's true.
Other than that, it could be CJ. Yeah,
I can see that. And let's face it too, Mahomes is going to be one of those people that everybody's going to want to give the nod to as well. There'll be a lot of that. If he just has the first decent season, it'll be like, a little bit of that going on, I think, as we get there on that.
Could be Geno again. People are talking up that Jets offense. That'd be fun.
I like Geno. I like Geno in New York, man. I'm sorry. I kind of like that roster with him. I think he's a guy that's really not had a lot to work with from coordinators to supporting cast and last couple of years, especially. And I think he's finally kind of got that now a bit. You buying some of that?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that Jets offense has a lot of fun stuff going on in it that Geno can benefit from. And I don't know how good they'll be as a team, but I think that offense could put up some numbers, especially if the defense is bad, because then the offense has to keep going.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. And it's certainly, I think, going to be a work in progress defense. So, he's got a running game. He's got some pass catchers to throw to that are interesting. A couple tight ends to toss to that both have a couple different skill sets to go with. I think I don't know, man. I think it could be interesting out there with them. We'll see. I'm hopeful for Geno that he gets a little reprieve out there. Come full circle there with the Jets would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and he could try to break the Chad Pennington record for winning comeback player of the year, which is the most unbreakable record in sports. I think he won it.
How many times?
I think Chad Pennington won comeback player of the year 3 times. So
holy crap.
Geno's got to get moving.
Oh goodness. There's some makeup ground to go there on that one. Burrow's won it once, hasn't he already?
Yeah, I think so. I think Burrow did win it once. So
okay. All right. Well, get it, Geno. Feed me. Thank you for the $5 donation. Feed me. Brendan, do you think Jordan Love could reach another level? It would change my opinion on the Packers. Do you think Caleb could upgrade processing?
Well, the Jordan Love stuff was, I don't know if you saw it, but this offseason, there has been a massive push by so many people and so many groups of talking about Jordan Love like he's a tier 1 quarterback. Like, I guess the advanced analytics just love him. PFF loves him. They think he's up there with the best of the best. And I've never really gotten it. I feel like he's kind of stagnated from where he was a few years ago. So I don't know how to feel about that one. That one's really tough because some people would say he's already there. A lot of people, I think, would actually say he's already at the top. And I don't feel like he's there at all. I think that he's like 3rd tier or something. So that's a tough one for me to answer.
I do put him in the top 10. I think that the processing, processing is a problem with him as it is with a bit of Caleb right now where they're at currently, where my issue with Jordan becomes, how have you advanced your game along since you've come in as a starter? When you walked in there as a Packer starter after sitting on the bench for 3 years, is your game better right now for sure than it was initially? And I know it is. You can't not get improved in that time, but it doesn't feel like it. And I think that he has a lot of stuff get scripted up to help him in that offense. He's had a Packer organization that's very competent about building very functional offenses, and that we're going to put investment in the offensive line. We're going to give you a cavalry of wide receivers at any given time. I mean, they took Savion Williams to be like the sixth receiver on that roster last year, Brendan.
Yeah.
Right? Like they lose Dontavian Wicks and Dobbs, and doesn't even miss a beat for them right now because they're just like, yeah, but then we still got Reed and we still got Watkins, and then we still got the kid we took last year, Golden. And then you got Josh Jacobs on top of it. My point being is that you got a lot there working in your favor, big guy. You do. And when I do watch the tape, it's not that he isn't good, not that he doesn't, I think he's got some real sparkling elements to his game. But I do think that there's a little bit of that lack of progressing to the place of where people have been trying to crown him for about the last 2 or 3 years here. It's like, he's getting ready to take the league over. He's getting ready to do that Aaron Rodgers do. And it may happen, but I don't think we've seen it consistently at that point yet.
I could be remembering wrong, but I believe that PFF ranked him ahead of Stafford and Burrow on their quarterback list that they did like last month. And when he got ranked at 73 or whatever on the top 100 list, which, I mean, that whole list is a train wreck, obviously, but a lot of people were like, it seemed like everybody just came out and was like, oh, that's ridiculous. He's so much better than that. He should be in the top 30. And I just kind of felt like I must be missing something here, because to me, you're playing in that Matt LaFleur offense that makes quarterbacking so easy. There's so many screen passes and manufactured throws in that offense. I'm like, well, what's so great about Jordan Love? Well, I mean, the only reason why he's ever made the playoffs is because the NFL invented the 7 seed. He gets the 7 seed every year. Their offense is good, but I don't think it's ever been elite with Jordan Love. And I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think he's solid, but it's a top 10. And I think there's a lot of guys in that top 10 territory that can have an argument made for him. There's a good stack of probably 8 to 12 guys in there that you can make your varying levels of arguments as far as this and that goes. So what do you think about Caleb Williams' ability to get better in his processing? You got any faith in that?
I remain very high on Caleb, and I think that people are underrating how good he is right now. And I think the thing that people need to keep in mind with something like Caleb is there's more than one way to be a really good quarterback in this league. Caleb has a relatively low completion percentage compared to the other starting quarterbacks in this league. That's true, but I don't think that you have to have some high completion percentage to be a great quarterback. There's stuff that Caleb does that very few, if any, other quarterbacks in the league can do that help compensate for that weakness in his game. So I feel like Caleb's closer to the upper echelon of quarterbacking than people give him credit for as of right now. So yeah, I'm definitely high on where his career is going from here.
There it is. I like Caleb too. Not sure if the processing is going to come along, but maybe he can get it done with the off script and a strong running game. And I'm not big on the Bears, though. I think they've taken a step back this offseason with some of their approach personally.
Yeah, and the Kobe thing, he's now out for the season, so they were counting on him, right? Because they lost Kevin Byard, I think.
They lost everybody, dude. It's the Byard and Brisker.
They lost both. Okay.
Yeah, so it's Thieneman's going to be their starting rookie at the free, and then they lose Dahlman to retirement. You got they lost the linebacker Edmonds. He's out now.
Who are they paying to lose all these players, by the way, other than
it's been what I right. It's why I've noted, it's kind of why I note it. Like DJ Moore gets moved in a trade as well, right? Like I don't understand the Bears approach, because you would have thought they built off of last year to say, okay, that was a great season. We took a step. Ben Johnson's the guy, Caleb's the guy. Hit the booster button. Like I would have thought they would have been at the forefront of moves to try to go after a guy like Max Crosby, for instance. You bring in a Max Crosby, you pair that up with Montez Sweat. That's a whole lot different than Austin Booker. That's a 9-day difference of Austin Booker. And now you can kind of remedy some of the secondary changes you're trying to do as far as less is on their shoulders to hold up now. But they didn't do it, man. They weren't in on any deal. They haven't tried to be aggressive in any way. They just kind of are just kind of holding tight, thinking it's just going to naturally get better. And maybe it does, but their defense doesn't scare me. And maybe Schwartz can or Allen, I think it is, scheme the hell out of that situation out there. But I think that they've kind of taken a step back this year. They'll still be good, but I just don't think this was the year to take the step forward. They would have been one of those teams where it's like you misidentify, like, okay, we're on the ascending point, but we're treating this like we're just entering the ascension point. And when you get to the elite, you got to do a move or two to kick yourself into that territory sometimes. Just don't think they have.
Yeah, they need Odunzier to become Larry Fitzgerald this season.
A lot on him, man. That's for sure. And I hope so. I love him coming out. And it's been surprising that he's not been able to do more. He's got a foot injury. He's been fighting through at times there. But I also don't know if he's necessarily the greatest of fits with Caleb. Caleb needs off script guys. He needs the Tyler Lockett types dudes to me that, Burton's a great example of that as well with the short area quickness. I can break off my initial route, get into the secondary route really quickly, go find an open space for Caleb to throw to. Rome's more of a non-script route running, put the ball in a specific area. Lack of accuracy is going to hurt on those contested catch guys because you need the ball in a certain spot to make the catch, right? Like you're going to throw it up on the high spot, on the back shoulder. You're going to put it right here. Caleb, it might be a little bit extra up over here or a little bit extra up over there, which makes it that much harder to hit those contested catches for a guy like Rome.
Right. But, I do wonder if Caleb can put them on their back a little bit, John Elway style. That is kind of the quarterback that he makes me think of sometimes. So, that's what Elway did in the 80s. So, Caleb, you got to do that too.
He may be able to pull it off. He came damn close last year, man. He had the Rams right on the brink. So, they're going to be fun. That defense is going to play wild, and they know their talent level requires them to have to scheme and be blitz heavy and go after it. And so we'll see. And Ben Johnson certainly is a very bright offensive mind, but I don't know, as a coach, there's only so much you can kind of script through and then work off script on the other side of it. Like the quarterback's processing's got to come into play at some point or another when we get down the line to it. I thought that came up at the end of that game against the Rams in Chicago, where you felt a little bit of that lack of ability to do that type of stuff at that time. And that's where you can get really far, but then you end up just kind of the wick runs out a little bit and you're kind of tapped. Al, thank you for the $2 donation, says Brando. Check your mail tomorrow. I will do so indeed, Al. Thank you for letting me know on that. I'll keep an eye out for the mail on that side. Thank you for sending me something, man.
Sounds kind of ominous. I don't know. Sounds kind of ominous.
I know. Well, I will have a neighbor open the package. But
you gotta get one of those package opening robots.
I do. Hey, we got drones, everything else. Why not that now at this point, huh? But thank you for that, Al. Appreciate you, man.
All right,
we'll definitely be on the lookout for that. Feed me. Thank you for the $2 donation. Says I think you meant $20,000, but you have to spend a day at the substation.
Well, I'll tell you, and this is one of the things that has happened to me over the summer, the off season, while we've been not working together. I have plantar fasciitis right now, actually. So if I go to the substation, am I going to make it worse? Because this thing has been bugging me for a long time now. I've had it for 4 months, and it doesn't go away easy. So if I'm going to go there, but I'm going to re-aggravate my plantar fasciitis and I have to deal with it for another couple years, I don't know if I do that. But under normal circumstances, I think I'll take my chances.
I'll do it, but I'm going to wrap myself up in tin foil, head to toe. I'll only have little eye slits. So I get to have that caveat. Feed me. I get eye slits and tin foil, and then I'm a yes. Otherwise, no. The psychological and the trauma that would be caused would be nowhere near worthwhile. Feed me's on a runner here. He's got a couple donations. He's back to back. And thank you for the two. Brendan, besides us and the Rams, is there an NFC team that scares you?
I wouldn't pick them to do anything crazy this year. I'm wondering about that Cowboys team, though, because I think they are going to have a top 3 offense. And if they can fix the defense even a little bit, which you got to be able to do better than you did last year, I think they could be like a very obnoxious team. Like maybe they won't be a team that wins 14 games or anything like that, but they could be a team that surprises you in the playoffs and gets a little bit further than you thought, just because that offense has the ability to go absolutely sicko mode at any given time. Like they could just pick a random game where they run 35 slant routes for George Pickens, and I don't know how you stop that. But in terms of like a team that I think will actually be really good, well-rounded, maybe this is the year for the Packers. That's the only thing that I can really think of.
I think those are good teams. Packers always are there where if some things can come together, they're always a potential. and Love's potential's there within it. I do have the Cowboys in the playoffs, Brendan. So I do see, like you, them being a team that's going to be dangerous. I think when it comes down to the team that can be a team capable of being a contender, though, I don't think the Cowboys are a Super Bowl contender. I don't think the Packers are a Super Bowl contender. I think that the Eagles still are a team that can be, if things work right in getting the new system in place for the offense, a team that's still very dangerous at that point. You do lose Brown, but you still put together an offensive line that's still got a lot of talent and guys who played a lot of great football there. Defensively, I think that they got Grenard coming in there now off the edge. That's an improvement over whatever they had last year. I think that this is a team that's probably going to make another move with Roseman. I don't think that they're done. I think that's another team that if you talk about Crosby, like who's the team that if we were in there competing with another team for Crosby services, I think it's going to probably be the Eagles right now. And so they're the team to me that remains one where I think that they're always they're right there as far as I certainly understand somebody saying, look, they're not as strong as they were 2 years ago. Saquon's maybe getting a little bit close to now hitting that cliff thing for a running back. Line's not as good as it was. I get all that. I do. I really do. But I also think there's still a hell of a lot of talent out there. That secondary is really very strong overall. That'd be the one for me.
Yeah. Lane Johnson's got 1 foot in a sandpiper housing facility, though. So I don't know. And
he's gonna lay it all on the line, man. Final season, he's gonna put it all on the line. He's gonna tape it up and just it's for the love of the game. This is my last chance. I'll be done after this.
And I'm not high on Jalen Hurts. I feel like I just feel like I can't count on him.
That's fair. I think it's very fair. Look, there's a lot of questions coming out of Philadelphia facilities this season, and I think it's Roseman that was leaking it. That was kind of already trying to push to the area of getting off of Hurts after this year, potentially even, because I think they're kind of feeling there's some limitations there in what he's able to bring and what he's able to do. And especially some of the stuff you hear about simplified offense and, not running the full measure of the playbook at times. That's something with a quarterback that's been in the league this many years and had his success. You shouldn't expect that's something that you're hearing.
Right.
Femi, thank you for another $2 donation. Says, what's your guys' opinion on the Jaden Daniels situation?
Pretty dumb. Pretty dumb. I mean, he didn't win anything at LSU. I don't know why he thinks he should be some LSU legend when he didn't. It's not like he won a national title for them or even got them to that game. He was an individually really good player, and he didn't have like some super long LSU career, did he? Like, it's not like he had a bunch of years of elite play. He had the 1 year that kind of launched. Yeah. He had 1 year for LSU that launched him into the stratosphere. Like, I don't think you should get your number retired for that. Like, we haven't retired Russell Wilson's number, and he gave us 10 good years and a Super Bowl. And I know college football is different, but even if you're trying to make an apples to apples comparison there, I don't even think Joe Burrow's had his number retired by LSU, and he did way more.
He did. I guess he did. That's what's got Jaden all pissed off, is because what you did for Joe, do Jaden.
Well, I mean, Burrow did way more for LSU than Jaden did. It's not even it's a complete false equivalency. So I don't really know what to say about it, but it's not good. It's not what he needs to be thinking about right now, too, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's maybe the most important point, the final one you made, beyond some good points all the way around on that situation. This is where I talk about wanting a quarterback that's a nerd, that's just all about ball. That's Sam Darnold. This is why I want that type of guy. It's very easy to get distracted with all of the attention, with all of the media stuff, with your ego able to just grow with time. And this just speaks of ego and reeks of ego. To Bren's point, Burrow won the championship there. Jaden didn't. And Burrow, was the number 1 overall pick on the back of him doing, but like what he did at LSU alone. And look, there's a lot of guys that helped him there, but there's a lot of guys that helped Jaden Daniels out as well. He had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors as his receiving core, for the love of goodness. Like, he had plenty of help. So like, I love Jaden at LSU, is a great player, but this is a silly situation on his part, and runs so counter to what these players typically operate in when they look at their alma mater, where it's nothing but reverence for their alma mater and thankful for their time there. And like, just don't quite understand it on that way. And I don't like it. It's got some diva tones to it, man. And I don't like a diva quarterback. Anybody that knows me knows I hate diva quarterbacks, man.
Yeah. So 2023 LSU went 10-3, finished 18th, did not make the playoff. 2022, they finished 10-4, were 20th, did not make the playoff. So they never even made the playoff with Jaden. And granted, back then it was a lot harder to make the playoff, but they wouldn't have even made the playoff in an expanded playoff because they didn't finish in the top 12. So
Not with 4 losses. It's just weird. It's a weird deal. Come on, Jaden. Be worried about bouncing back after a poor second sophomore slump season and the injuries you got to get around.
Be worried about your blind side with Laramie Tunzel out for most of the season.
Oof. Yeah, and that's another good point. And yeah, one of those games you spoke to Carolina. We've had some of the games already set up for us in some of these games ahead of time. The teams will be playing where it's going to be made a little bit easier. But like Washington, when you play them, they won't have Tunsil. No left tackle there that week game. Carolina with Scorden going down, and they've had a couple different guys bounce out. Be helpful.
Yeah, we got to check that out. For it. Yeah, we got to check out Carolina for some substations because they had the worst start to camp of any team.
It's been brutal, man. You just go, boy, what's happening? Sometimes it's your number, and it's this time of year every day. Brendan, you always kind of hold your breath when you're watching The Wire because you just know sometimes stuff can fall like dominoes. And here's one today, here's another one tomorrow. Look at the Niners situation where they've got like 25 guys not practicing or something like that. You know, they don't even know if they're going to be able to field the team for the. I was joking the other day on the roundtable. They're going to have to do 2-way in the game for the preseason games because they're getting down so light on some of these guys. So it's sometimes your number, and you don't want it to be so when it is. But yeah, Carolina's looking like they're in kind of some tough shape right now as far as that goes. Xavier Legette, I think, down for the year.
Yeah,
Mitchell Evans went down the other day. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Sandman with the $5 donation over on your side. Thank you for that, Sandman. Is Sam Darnold a top 15 quarterback or even top 10 quarterback this year? A lot of people seem to be even ruling him out of the top 15. #go.
I think Darnold is a top 10 quarterback, but I got to say, I might be the only one who thinks that. If you look at these ranking lists that pop up all over the internet, like I've seen amateur ones, professional ones, nobody is giving it to Darnold right now. And look, there's a lot of guys in that 8 to 12 range that you could slot in at random spots. Like once you get past the top 5, and pretty much everybody's top 5 is Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Stafford in some order, it gets really tough once you get past that top 5. Like you've got Drake May, you've got Justin Herbert, you've got Brock Purdy, you've got Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. Some people would say Jaden Daniels. I think most people have cooled off on him for the moment, but some people would still elevate him to that point. You've got a lot of quarterbacks in that range that all feel like they get crammed into the same basic area. And it seems like a lot of people leave Darnold off, which, I mean, to me, my thing is he's done it 2 years in a row now on 2 different teams. Like this isn't a Brock Purdy situation where, yeah, he's keeps playing good, but he's always been with Shanahan. Like this guy went from one team to a completely different team and kept up the level of play for the most part. So I would put him in the top 10, but I might be the only one who does right now.
Yeah, I would put him, Sandman, into the top 8. 8 would be about the spot I think I ended up landing at when I tried to draw this list out and look over the guys that are there. I think there's a lot of variance. I think Brendan touches on this well, where it's more about tiers than it is a list, because when you parse between 0 to 5, it's very close with all those guys as far as who's the true separator. And you can make an argument for each of those guys probably into that top 4 or 5-ish territory of having number 1. I think when you get into sort of 6 to 13-ish, you're into more of your next tier. And then again, we come back to the same thing with the top 5, where it's like strong arguments to be made for all these guys there. I think with Sam, Brendan touched upon it. One thing that cannot be overlooked is the first quarterback in NFL history went 14 games at 2 different teams like that. It's 2 different spots you're doing it in. It's coming into Seattle in your very first year in the program and ascending to those heights. Yes, you have a supporting cast around you. Yes, you have help around you. But it was not a team that was winning 13, 14 games prior to you walking in there. Minnesota wasn't winning 13, 14 games prior to what you did with them, and they weren't winning 14 games after you left. In fact, the integral part of you leaving, the empty space, the hole, is the very thing that causes Minnesota fall on their face last year. These are all indicators about where Sam's value lies and the type of quarterback he truly is. The other part of this that has to be baked in a little bit is what you're asked to do within the offense. If I'm a high volume passing quarterback, Brendan, so easy for people to then mark and put that guy up into the top 5. You got this stat, you have that stat, stats of accumulation, stats of volume. But stats of volume aren't necessarily stats of efficiency or effectiveness. They can be just purely stats of, I just had this many more attempts than this guy, right? Nobody would argue Jacoby Brissett had a great year last year. But if you look at the numbers for 11 games started, well over 3,000 yards passing, right? But we don't play that game, right? Because we go, no, there's factors at hand that led to that productivity. So why don't we do the same with a Sam Darnold? A guy that last year, the Seattle was 29th in the NFL in passing attempts. The market opportunities were not in place to be able to have him go out there and shine, statistically speaking. But yet, effectively, efficiently, 8.5 yard average per attempt in a West Coast offense, Brendan, which is supposed to be about dink and dunks, and you just drop the ball in the guy's hands and let him go after it. Like there's a 68% completion percentage. And I like, that's the part that's got to be baked into this a bit, I think. And people don't like to do this. People like to look more just on the sheer, I tend to find this in the NFL where there's no look at sort of efficiency factor. I know EPA stuff will look at this a little bit, but people still haven't gotten onto that yet, have they? It still is a little bit looked at as this sort of old school outlook on the position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying about Caleb Williams. There's more than one way to be a good quarterback in this league. You can be a great quarterback with a lower than average completion percentage like Caleb. You can be a great quarterback in this league even while leading the league in turnovers like Sam Darnold. I think there's a desire to put every player in the NFL through the same like hoops they have to jump through in order to be considered good or great or elite. But I think it needs to be understood that there are multiple ways to get to that same point. And you can have deficiencies in a certain area as long as you're making up for it in other areas. In the case of Darnold, he had all the turnovers last year, but he was also maybe the best big play quarterback in football. Like the ability to hit downfield throws consistently pretty much the whole season really made the turnovers almost irrelevant for the Seahawks, I think. Like there was very, very little of the turnovers actually hurting the team that much.
And there was also the part of the learning process for him where the impressive part about coming to a team initially is you're learning through, like you'll have interceptions off miscommunication or timing being off on guys that you're just still familiarizing yourself with. You get him down the home stretch of the season, you get him down to the playoffs, no turnovers. Starts to find that perfectly struck balance of for effectiveness to go win games over that stretch, not losing one football game. That's right when he found that perfect balance as well, within that, to your point. And I agree. There's a lot of ways to get this done and show your effectiveness as a quarterback. It doesn't have to be just 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. And I'll say as well, I think that there are some quarterbacks, Jared Goff, they throw for 4,500 yards to the 30 touchdowns and they just sort of get that pass for that, where it's like, but would I want, you know what I mean? Would I, he is, but would I for my,
I mean, didn't we played this game with Tua in Miami? He put up great numbers that one year, and look where he is now. Or you've got what was it? Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo in San Fran putting up good numbers every year, and then he went to the Raiders and he lost his starting job in like 6 games. So the number stuff, especially the box score stats, that's for fantasy football. Like we've come along further than just looking at touchdown passes to figure out who's good and who's bad.
Amen. But still, that's not the outlook from a lot out there as you hear the discourse in regards to the discussion with it. Max Bayleaf, thank you for the 8 months as a member. Says Chris Sims was saying Jaden Daniels' mom is his agent, and she is known for being a bit crazy. So she might be driving this number nonsense. I would at least explain it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last player that had this enter onto their radar, especially enter onto their radar as they were in the midst of their NFL career. Just sort of feels like something that shouldn't be in your purview.
Yeah, I'd say Michael Penix should get his number retired at UW before Jaden Daniels gets his number retired at LSU. Like Penix went to the championship, right?
It's a good point.
They both had 2 great years. They both put up monster numbers. But Penix actually, his first year was way better than Jaden Daniels' first year. And like I said, Penix went to the title game. So, and I don't know if Penix should get his number retired at UW. I'm not sure about that. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I just think you just go. I don't think NFL, I get the retiring numbers. I don't really get the retiring numbers at the college level. Just kind of feels like a bit of a different stage, a different territory, there's more guys coming through, 100-man rosters. I don't know about, like, it makes a lot of sense to do that. Revere them or find a way to like put their name up in the stadium thing or whatever, on a name of honor, ring of honor list. But the retiring number thing that's an NFL thing to me more than a college thing.
Yeah.
Feed Me, thank you for the $10 donation. Feed Me and all of your support today, man. You've been awesome as ever. I think the media is hung up on Sam still. I watched something where they said Seattle is not underrated. They're good and repeating is hard. I was like, wow, something smart. Then they start talking about Sam.
Is that a facepalm emoji? I can't tell.
Facepalm emoji. And he's talking about Chris Broussard has a well-traveled clip that's making its way through the hemisphere today, where Chris is talking. And a lot of Hawk fans are saying, hey, actually, Chris had some good points here to Feed Me's point on it. I still have some issues with it on the baseline because Chris's whole gist of this is, well, repeating's hard because no teams have really done it in this modern era, but two, like in the modern 2000s, essentially, is sort of his point. And then those two teams that did it had to have Mahomes or Brady or what, like that type of thing, right? Like, and you don't have that in Sam Darnold, to his point, and now getting it back to Sam Darnold. I think that the whole point is, as I always bristle about, Brendan, and I'm getting more and more touchy to this stuff, when you start striving at looking at the NFL game in any way, or an NFL team in any way, and you're trying to go to some simplistic baseline of your outlook of the view of a situation, you're not taking everything into account. And when you're taking something like small sample size of number of teams that have repeated in the 2000s, yeah, there have been few teams that have done it. Sure. And those two teams happen to have two all-time quarterbacks added. That doesn't make that a rule of thumb. That makes it a sample size. It's a sample size of data for 100-year history of an NFL, right? Like, it's you plucking something out that fits to your argument rather than fitting to form. And my proof of this, Brendan, and I'm going on a tangent here. My proof of this is that they start backtracking into now the last century and including those teams that went back to back. And suddenly we have a Brian Greasy. We have a Brian Greasy that went back to back. Suddenly he doesn't fit to the narrative. And this is the problem with taking sample size statistics and trying to extrapolate them to bigger things. We just don't have enough of a baseline of enough of this stuff. It's hard to do. Yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to do for a variety of reasons. It's not just hard to do because it's just hard to do. Teams run into a variety of different obstacles, Brendan, that prevent them from repeating. Have Seattle begun to run into some of those similar obstacles that prevented other teams to repeat, would you say? Like, so far, have anything through this offseason? Is anything through the buildup, the loss of free agency, a bad draft, in-house tumultuousness, Brendan? Has there been anything up until this point that would have caused you to get skipped up on that obstacle where you can start to see the warning signs saying this ain't going to happen?
Well, usually, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually teams that win the Super Bowl lose a lot from that roster, and this Seahawks team hasn't. They actually did a study based on number of snaps played. The only Super Bowl champion in recent history that has lost less than this Seahawks team is the Brady Buccaneers team that lost basically nothing. Like, they literally brought back almost everybody from that Super Bowl team. So that's number one, right? Like you look at some of the teams that have won Super Bowls recently. You've got teams like Denver that lost their quarterback to the offseason, and then they lost a bunch of, I think DeMarcus Ware retired at that point, if I recall correctly. Yep. Did Demarius I can't remember if Demarius retired, but I think they lost Talib. There was a lot going on with that team. You can look at some of these other teams, like the Chiefs have to rip apart their offensive line sometimes after they win the Super Bowl, and Philly loses Milton Williams and
Sweat.
Yeah, Josh Sweat. And I think they may have lost somebody on the offensive line as well.
Kelsey retired.
Yeah, Kelsey retired. That might have been the year after they lost in the first round, though. I can't remember for sure. But the point I'm trying to make is that usually the Super Bowl makes you kind of pull your team apart a little bit because everybody wants to get paid now because they just won. That didn't really happen with this team. We lost players, of course, but we didn't lose the extremely important load-bearing parts of it. We lost kind of the bonus parts of it and the replaceable parts of it. And however much you might like Ken Walker, and however much some people might think we should have kept him, Ken Walker is replaceable. He's a borderline top 10 running back. I think he's like the 9th or 10th best running back in the league. That is replaceable. Kobe Bryant's replaceable. We may have replaced him with a guy who was on the roster anyway, depending on who you ask. So no, I don't think that you can draw an equivalency to this team that is trying to defend their title and other teams that have been trying to defend their title.
Yeah, I agree in full, and I just think that there's a real draw to go simplistic, and like rather than go simplistic, let's take context. Let's look at the team exactly where we're at. I mean, you mentioned Tampa Bay. That's a great indicator there because Tampa Bay has one of these sacred two quarterbacks that, well, unless you have Brady or Mahomes, well, here's Brady, a guy that returned all of his starters on offense and on defense, yet they still fell short that next year because it has really less to do with you with the magical quarterback and more to these parameters I'm talking about. How'd the offseason go? How was Devin White's shape coming in off the Super Bowl victory? A guy that was absolutely hugely important to your defense and the performance of that defense in that Super Bowl, running all over the field, looking like the next great young linebacker in this sport. How did he show up into camp next year? How did he look in that training camp? Did he get a little fat and happy? Was there a couple players there that kind of felt themselves? And could you start to feel some of those indications in training camp? Like I'm talking about these obstacles. You would have seen some of those obstacles and felt some of those obstacles from Tampa Bay's camp as you were kind of getting closer to the season. And we're not feeling that from the Seattle team. To all the points you made about the offseason and the losses and the gains, where you stand now cap space wise, where you stand with your contracts. It's just, you have to me, look at this as in every individual situation. They make a great point about Kansas City and having their offensive line constantly ripped apart. You know, it's Mitchell Schwartz and Fisher kind of going into retirement mode. And then it's guys getting bought away from you, like, you know, Orlando Brown after they made the first round pick trade for him. You know, it's like they've had this stuff where you can see the problems coming. You can see the issues coming. Ability to replace the Tyreek Hill, for instance. Who you're replacing? We don't know. We'll just try a couple second rounders. Let's see how it goes. Like, these are things you can kind of see in the moment before we get to the season. And I just think with this Seattle team, the thing that stood out, and it's thing I hammer on this, Brendan, because I think it's the unique thing that stands about this team specifically just winning the Super Bowl, is that they have somehow avoided all that. Guys have come into camp in shape. We're hearing about guys taking steps forward that are young players and that they're locked in. We're hearing about a hunger that's existing here and not about people being placated or fat and happy. It's all of the opposite indicators here about what this team is showing us that they're going to bring in this upcoming NFL season. And you're free to call me if you're sensing it different, but it does just stand out to me as maybe the main storyline coming out of training camp so far.
Yeah, definitely. And like another way to think about it is how many players on this team do you think could reasonably have age-related regression this year compared to last year? It would be DeMarcus Lawrence, Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, didn't even have big numbers last year, so it's not like he's a integral part of the offense in terms of his ability to catch the ball. And like who else at that point, right? Like nobody on the offensive line is old. None of the receivers other than Kupp are old. The running backs are all young. Maybe you'd say Charbonnet because he's coming off the injury, but not Derek Hall. He's young. Ernest Jones is in his prime. Drake Thomas is young. It's mostly a team of young players that, if anything, some of them are going to get better, like Eamon Worry or Zabel. I don't see a lot of guys on this team that are old. There was no sense that last year was like the one last ride of an aging team, just trying to squeeze out that title before everybody hits the retirement home. There was very little age on that team, and I see very little age on this team. So this isn't, you know, the 2015 Broncos had that feel a little bit because you had a lot of old players on that team. Peyton Manning, DeMarcus Ware. I think Demaryius Thomas was pretty old at that point, if I recall correctly. That was kind of like the one last hurrah Super Bowl season. This team, there's very little of that.
Yeah, I think you can find a lot of those indicators like you talk about going through some of these teams, looking at like Baltimore, for instance, where they beat the Niners and Ray Lewis on his way out and some of the older guard there starting to be on their way out. Like there's a lot of this stuff that you can kind of pop through and find. The Patriots, the year they beat us, and then Revis moving on right after that, you know, a big part of what drove that success that year for them defensively and his addition to that ball club. So I think it's a good point, man. And I feel great about this team. I think that when they're looking at trying to pick away at this team and tell you why it's so hard to repeat, they can't go to something specific, folks. When you listen to them talk, always listen to how it's vague, how it's generalized, how it's non-specific, the reason for what will hold them back. And that's, to me, why they're not looking at this very clearly or even trying to. They're just looking for the simple excuse, the simple explanation. And football is too complicated to be looking for the simple, in my opinion. Yeah. Luis Munoz. Sorry, Brendan, you had something to add?
No.
Luis, thank you for the $5 on Brendan's side. Do you see us re-signing Witherspoon before the season? If not, do you think we will regret that?
I would really like to see it get done before the season, because once the season starts, the odds of it getting done then are they go down significantly because GMs don't like to mess with that stuff while they're trying to, actually have a season running. Although we did do it last year with Cross, so it's not inconceivable. But it is very obnoxious to me because it does feel like that Christian Gonzalez is ruining things for us, and that's the only reason why this hasn't already happened. So,
I get the impression too.
Yeah, and I guess he's looking for a contract that is. I think he even floated the idea of a percentage of the cap because he doesn't want his deal to become obsolete so fast. Which, I mean, what Christian Gonzalez has been great in this league. Don't get me wrong, but what has he done to deserve something that no other player in NFL history has ever gotten? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
So I think it gets done. I think that it might end up being a little bit more than we currently anticipate, but I also don't think it's going to be a big deal. Like, I thought it was going to be 32 a year. If it ends up being like 35 a year, we're going to be like, oh, wow, that's a big jump from where we were before. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. Like, I think he's worth that. And I don't have a huge issue with paying him that. So I imagine it gets done. It's starting to sound like Gonzalez is just going to get paid next year. So maybe he'll kind of drop out of the conversation. And Witherspoon can kind of negotiate on his own terms rather than thinking about what he wants versus Gonzalez.
Yeah, it's this is one where I do think a signing like Brendan does says here is going to get done. Indicators in the background, and what we're hearing from sources is that everything seems to be good. He's practicing. There was no problem with that. There's no like, well, he's got a, Puka groin coming up now, so I got to be off the practice field. He's out there every day. All these are good indicators that we're on track. I agree with Brendan. I think Gonzalez is a heavy part of this that's causing this to be problematic and held up a little bit. I also think that I'd be willing, like Brendan says, to go a little bit more than you might have been comfortable, making it the natural bump from the last guy. There's only two other guys, I believe, that are $30 million cornerbacks in this league. You just broached that mark as it is. Now suddenly we're going to get to 34, 35. It's all about structure. Can I put the deal on the end of the 2 years remaining on his rookie contract, on his first round contract? Then I got no problems with it. I think where you come down to having a problem with it is that if you're in the organization's territory of this and you're not saving any money, i.e. what New England sounds like they're walking into, where I reward you, but I'm not getting anything for rewarding you other than making you feel fat and happy. That's it. Like, I ain't saving any money. I'm not helping the structure of my cap this year into the future. You're putting me into perilous shape right from the jump so you can get yours. Don't begrudge a player for wanting that, but the team's got the leverage here. They got the 2 years of club control and 2 years of franchise tag. Not that I would push those franchises years, but it's the leverage they own, not the player. And if that's the case, you tell the player, hey, if Brendan, for instance, Witherspoon's coming in saying 38, 39, and like, I'm going to start to go, wait, hold on here. I'm not going to Linderbaum you at the center position. I'm not going to treat you like you're a street free agent, go over the top of what the last guy made there just because. That's not smart for an organization to do that. And so there's always a line here. You're willing to make him the highest paid. You're willing to make him by far the highest paid. But it does sound like this agent's wanting to kind of drive beyond that. And some of it being, you're looking at the receivers, for instance, getting up around $40 million per year. And they're like, well, I mean, what's the big difference between us and them? Really? You know that they're thinking it, Brendan. And I don't agree with it. The price is the price. You got to pay what the cost is for positional rankings, and positional value is there for a reason. You find yourself standing the same way. You're playing him out. If he's pushing 37, 38, you go, okay, we're playing out another year then.
Yeah, I think these players need to keep in mind, like, it's good for you too to get the long-term deal on ice. Like, trust me, especially if you're Devin Witherspoon and you play an incredibly physical style of football and you've already had injuries in your career because of it. This is not just for the benefit of the team. It's also for the benefit of you, because the cap hit for Witherspoon this year is about 10 million. Next year's 21. Like, that's well under what you deserve to be paid based on your play. So, and then after that, it's just nothing potentially. So it is to your benefit to sign a long-term deal now with 2 years left on that deal to lock that in. So don't forget, you got to kind of meet us halfway here. Don't forget about that.
Yeah, it's different when you've got leverage as a player. You're a street free agent, or the team's in a position where they've used up all your club control. You can be in a position to now hardline it, but when you're not, this is the nature of the beast. You just don't get to be in that position to do so, especially when you put so much into the bonus and guarantees on your rookie deal and holding out, which I just can't help but think partially makes this a little bit harder to get the second deal done, because now we still got bonus money left on your deal right now that we're still paying out. And now we're going to put new bonus money on top of that. it does get tough on this one just a little bit. Banker, thank you for the $2 donation. Your defensive MVP Mafe left. The sky is falling, and he's of course tongue in cheek saying that. Thank you for the donation, Banker. And yeah, it is a place where they've had to go to, where it's the first time I've ever seen in NFL history. Pundits and analysts and experts point to a guy that had 2 sacks for you for a whole regular season as being a somewhat of a monumental loss to the team.
Pro Football Focus did their ranking list of the best edge rushers in football, and Boye Mafe was actually on that list. He was like 23rd or 24th, which I was like, that's news to me. I watched every Seahawks game last year. I did not come away thinking that he was one of the 25 best edge rushers in football.
I wouldn't have either, man. I mean, you had 18 guys with 10 sacks or more last year. I'm not all those edge rushers, of course, but a lot of them are. Mafe was a good player, and I'm glad he got paid, and I'm glad we're getting the compensatory pick back the other side of it. But he didn't take the step forward in his game. There's a guy that this happens to certain guys where just like the game kind of is where it is. And I don't think he's the best fit for this defense either. I don't think that working off that wide extra width as the wide 10 essentially, and I don't think that was his best kind of fitting, and that probably neutralized some of his productivity. But yeah, it's wild to watch people kind of point to that as this huge miserable loss, especially with Fowler brought in house, where it's like at the very least you'd look at that if you're any kind of expert and go tit for tat, apple for apple. I mean, it's basically going to give you the same thing.
Yeah, I could understand saying that we're going to miss Walker or we're going to miss Woolen even, but missing Mafe, like there were games near the end of the season last year where he was barely playing because there just wasn't any real impact from him. Yeah.
No, I felt the same way. He went quiet in a lot of games, and it wasn't consistent pass rush that you were getting from that guy. There's some games he turned it on, some games you could kind of feel a little bit more from him, but a lot of games where he was very quiet when he was out there, and he got a lot of opportunities because I think he was the one guy that wasn't really, Chenna coming back from his injury last year, and Hall having his injury situation with the oblique mid-year last year, and even DeMarcus Lawrence, I think, having a game or two in there that he had kind of missed. Yeah, so he had plenty of chances there, plenty of rips to get after it last year and put more productivity up.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Upo with a $10 donation over on Brendan's side. Thank you for that, Upo. Hey, guys. Always love good Seahawks talk. Need more debates. I would give Witherspoon a blank check and pay him anything he wants. I don't think people really get his role in this defense.
There is one thing in this comment that I definitely want to hammer because I see some people who seem to believe that Witherspoon is replaceable because he only has 2 career interceptions. That's not how it works. Witherspoon might be the most irreplaceable player on this team other than Byron Murphy. You got to understand that, yeah, you could find other corners that can get 2 interceptions over a 3-year period, but you're not going to find any corners that do what Witherspoon does in the run game and as a run supporter and just as a tackler. Like that is something that you very rarely find in this league. And the idea that just because he doesn't get picks or doesn't make a lot of plays on the ball, or he fell down a couple times in the NFC title game, that means that he's not that good of a player. I don't want to see this defense without Devin Witherspoon. I think that would be an ugly sight.
Yeah, I do as well. You're not to the blank check place of it though.
Yeah, that is another element to it here. Like, some people might say, well, aren't he and JSN the same? And I don't think so. Witherspoon missed 5 games last year. Witherspoon had games that were not so good, like the NFC Championship game. As much as he did make the 2 big plays at the end, he also gave up a lot in that game. He got burned a lot. And whereas JSN was bringing it almost every single week, except for the weeks where we didn't throw the ball because we were up by so much. And I think if you're putting those 2 players next to each other, JSN has done more and deserved more. He deserved the blank check, and we kind of gave him the blank check. I do agree with you though that I'm not at a blank check place with Witherspoon right now. But
yeah,
I don't think he's replaceable the way that some people seem to be intimating.
I would agree with you on the replaceability, that we're not just going to turn around and find some guy that you can just bang right in there if you're moving him on. I do agree with you, Upo, and that, this is a tremendously unique player, and the value he provides, like Brendan also said, where you got to get beyond just looking at just interceptions with him. And he's a tape guy. You turn on the all 22 on defense. He is everywhere. You feel his presence. There's no doubt about it. He's a absolutely top end, one of the best corners, if not the best corner in the sport, for all that value he brings. As an organization, sorry, go ahead.
He may not be the best corner, but I think he's the most irreplaceable corner. Like, you couldn't replace him with Surtain. Surtain might be better, but Surtain's not doing what Witherspoon does.
No. And it is that all of that you bring, especially to this defense that really loves having flexibility amongst its defensive players. The more you can do, having a player with him that can do everything, that's where it's a marriage of a guy who's got great, tremendous all-around skill, but then going to a defense that's going to maximize that to the utmost. And that part's got to be taken into account here as well. I can't do the blank check when I've got 2 years of a contract left on a guy. I can't blank check that. My position on this is that even though if he goes to 37, 38, 40, I'm going to be paid what JSN's been paid. Number one, to your point on that, JSN just had an all-time type season. For an offense that was 29th in passing attempts, he almost set an NFL record for receiving yards. Like, that's significant. That's very significant, and that's in a different layer than where necessarily Devin is. Not to say that he's way better as a player. It's just that, like, look, the dollars are earned there more. If you're going to ask for that 38, and I ain't going to save anything as a team by rewarding you right now, again, other than just making you feel, like, well, they give me my respect. Like, well, NFL organizations that want to be Super Bowl perennial contending teams or elongate out their Super Bowl window are not going to get there by getting held over the barrel in player negotiations. That's the way that you close that window down faster. That is what sentimental terms can get you. That is what the Niners are running into right now, where they have constantly guys wanting to be re-upped at every turn because that's the standard that they've set that you can do so, and they'll pay it. And the problem is that you do this with him, and then the guy behind him is going to want the guy behind him, and then now you're in financial peril in your cap situation. So I think you're willing to make the guy the highest paid corner in the sport. You're willing to reward him 2 years early. You're willing to make him the highest paid corner in the sport 2 years early, well above what the last guy got. The industry standard here is $500,000, right, Brendan? I get to be the highest paid guy. I'm the next guy up. $500,000 to $800,000 is the bump that I can expect. We're going to throw you a $2 to $3 million bump per year, higher than the next guy got paid 2 years early. And you're still going to come back to us and say that's not good enough respect. That's, to me, where the team's on firm good standing to say, no, we've gone above and beyond on this to satiate you here. You're being a little bit over the top, and we're going to make you wait. And then I come back next year and I'll give him the $38 million. And guess what? That's where I start to save the money now, because now I can structure the deal better out, and like the cost didn't change. It was going to cost me 38 now. It's going to cost me 38. At least that $5 million of bonus that he's got on his books this year bleeds off, and that's off for next year. So I can start it from one last year of the contract that's all base salary essentially in the fifth year. So I think that's where the line on this has got to be drawn. I think John's drawn it, and we'll see if Spoon kind of can come to that middle ground on this a little bit. I mean, they're giving him a lot on that if that's the offer that they're giving, which I expect is probably it. I think you're right, Brendan, that it is a couple million over what McDuffie at 31 million got offered. At 33, 34, 35, we're giving you a significant bump at that point. That's no small, just little. Oop.
Yeah. I hope Denzel Ward didn't photobomb us here, because I was thinking about that, because he, reset the record or whatever. And I was wondering to myself, I hope Spoon doesn't look at that and start getting ideas.
Well, the thing that I looked at it though, when I was looking at that, everything was fitting. Sorry, 1 second here. I wanted to look at it really quick, Brendan, but everything was fitting on the last three contracts being, you've got McDuffie, you've got Ahmad Gardner, McDuffie, and then you've got Denzel, right? Those are the last three big contracts. Those are the only guys that have cleared $30 million as far as their average hit goes.
Are we not calling him Sauce anymore? Is he Ahmad now? Like, are we taking the sauce away?
You don't get a nickname. You don't get a nickname when you're not good enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. He's Ahmad now. I like it.
So Derek Stingley, $30 million. Next guy to get paid, Ahmad Gardner, 30.1. So $100,000 bump over what Stingley got paid. McDuffie, $31 million. So a $900,000 bump over what Ahmad got paid last year mid-year. Now, Denzel Ward, 31.1. $100,000 over the top of what McDuffie got. So now we're looking at this stack, right? 100,000, 900,000, 100,000, 900,000. And now Witherspoon should be 7 million more, 8 million more.
Yeah. I mean, my fear was just that he would look at that and go, wait a minute, I'm way better than Denzel Ward at this point, especially with Denzel's concussion issues. And the last 2 years, his coverage numbers has been down. Like, By the way, I don't know why did Cleveland do that? He had 2 years left on his deal. The Browns are going to suck this year.
Because
Like
their
what?
cap situations is in the outhouse.
Yeah,
Because they've leveraged the hell out of everything. They've stretched the Watson contract to the nines. They had to eat dead money on the Garrett hit now. That put them back down on that side of it. And they're trying to just be functional, you know?
Yeah, I guess it felt like it came out of nowhere, but that would be my fear, that he looks at it and goes, I was comparable to McDuffie. I was in a comparable situation to McDuffie, so I could look at that and go a little bit above McDuffie. But now that Ward jumped McDuffie, does he look at that and go, wait a minute, I should get way more than Ward? And then that just messes up his mentality. So I hope that's not the case, but John, more than most other GMs, seems to draw a line and stick to that line. And you have to really, really pull him to get him off that line. Like Russell Wilson kind of pulled him off that line, but he did not go silently into that night when that happened, apparently. Supposedly, he got very, very pissy about it. So I would not expect that Schneider would be willing to bend very much on this. And ultimately, I think Witherspoon, knowing how he plays football, is eventually going to meet in the middle somewhere, because I think that it is still going to be a significant bump from where we are right now in the market. I think it will be 33, 34 million a year, because that is the value that he brings to the team. But like you said, and like I said earlier, he's not at the JSN level. JSN has played every game so far in his NFL career. He has not missed a game yet. He has won Offensive Player of the Year. He has made All-Pro First Team. These are all things that Witherspoon hasn't done yet. As good as Witherspoon is, he hasn't done those things yet. So I don't think you can say that he's equivalent to a JSN in terms of where his negotiating power should be right now.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't either. I think there's a real happy middle ground to be had here, where everybody comes out of this, himself included, feeling like, all right, I got the right end on this, but we'll see. I expect it to get done here sooner than later. Roy Froelich, thank you for the $10 donation on Brennan's side. That's very kind of you, man. BNB Show's back, baby. Let the games begin. Absolutely. And we will be every week, folks, Thursday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Over here going live for you guys on this, previewing these upcoming games for the NFL season. We'll be doing some move around shows this year too, Brendan, because we've got some weird timing with all of the primetime games and Wednesday games and Christmas games. So
yeah,
subject to change on that one. But every week, at least once a week here.
Yeah. And if something big happens, maybe we'll do an unplanned show. Like if there is a big trade at some point, we might do a show just for that. But yep, we're back for another year. This is year number 6.
That's right, man. That's right. Time flies. We're having fun on that. But thank you for that, Roy. Looking forward to this year with Brendan, and hopefully going back to back, man. That'd be another great year to be able to follow doing this coverage with you on that. Feed Me, thank you for the $2 donation. Says Jaden Daniels posted, I don't think he is pushing the story.
So it's the agent / mom, not the player. Well, I mean,
Mom, stop pissing on my alma mater, Mom. God.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden's a grown man. He should be able to be like, wait a minute here. I got to do what's best for me in this circumstance. So hopefully that's true. Hopefully he's not making a big deal out of something that isn't worth making a big deal out of. The memes are great, though. Well, the memes have been phenomenal all day.
They have been pretty hilarious. So hopefully he puts the kibosh on it. It's a silly story and should be one that he's able to put away quickly on that. Thank you, Feed Me, for all your support today. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. How do we feel about trading a first and a second for Crosby mid-season after the Raiders lose a few games? Not sure I value the 32nd and 64th pick next year.
I would probably do that unless I see something from the edge rusher room that surprises me in the first half of the season. Like maybe Uchenna Nwosu does have a big comeback to 2022 form. Maybe Derek Hall breaks out at the same time. Like there's a scenario where maybe I feel like we don't need to do that. But as of right now, I would definitely be intrigued by a Crosby trade, especially if it's only a first and a second.
If the defensive pass rush productivity after week 6 and the record after week 6 is exactly where it was last year, Brendan, Do you feel impelled to make that move?
I would do it. I think I would do it because the record last year was 4-2, and if we start 4-2, I'm going to get antsy a little bit because I don't think that'll be enough to win the division, and I don't think that sets us up very well to win the division. I think we need to start 5-1 at least. And last year, the pass rush at the start of the season was pretty good, but you had moments against like Tampa Bay where it was non-existent, and the first game against the Niners, it wasn't great either. So I would probably be looking at that and going, yeah, we need to get better here if we want to repeat. And I'd probably go for it.
I understand completely with it. And I can't turn down any of that logic or reasoning at all. If you're in that same position, I'm really getting hot to trot on the ability to maybe potentially get through this year and have to not really do anything major at the deadline. I know maybe I'm being greedy on this, Brendan, and I certainly expect that John's going to be aggressive in some way because you have so many picks and you got to do something with those picks. You're not picking natively all those selections next draft. But I've been really caught up on the thought process of maybe getting up and getting a real blue chip kind of player next year, packaging those picks in such a way because a blue chip player could fall a little bit further than normal because of the fact that quarterbacks will go and tackle will go and a couple of edge rushers go. And then suddenly you have like a true blue chip talent guy. You can go up and do a Julio Jones kind of trade where you're not going up to number 2, number 3. You're not doing 3 first rounders to get up here. Now you can get it done with a couple first rounders plus the kick in of a couple of these picks on the back end can make it work. And I'm getting caught up with that notion, but I'm certainly not anti Crosby either because I can understand why that certainly would be a smart decision at that point in time.
Yeah, I would say one or the other. If you don't get Crosby, then I want to plan for a big swing in the 27 draft to go up to get like a Colin Simmons or I don't know if we'll need a receiver, but a Jeremiah Smith or, one of those super blue chippers that could just propel you into the next decade, like a Julio Jones. That's the example you use. And I would want to do one or the other because we got too many picks and our roster's too good to where those picks will even have a chance to make the team. So let's convert some of those picks into better players.
And more so is that secondary option than even doing the thing they did a couple of years ago. We go multiple second rounders, right? So you take the package of picks and you end up getting into 2 extra second rounders essentially and how you bundle the picks. Would you still prefer going to the blue chip over that?
Yeah, I think so because it's one of the only ways you're going to get a blue chipper because we're a little too good and a little too well run right now to ever get that pick natively. So if you want to pick in the top 10 at some point in the next decade, you're probably going to have to do something like that. And that's something that I want to feel again. It's not something that I've gotten to feel very much as a Seahawks fan over the last 3 decades.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It'd be very exciting, especially because it kind of injects in the roster with a bit of that youth, like O'Reilly Mills does, like these roads that you got this roster already made, but you're already now putting some youthful guys that actually have some real upside to them. They realize that upside with the roster where it's at, where that takes you, how long that can kind of carve out your Super Bowl run or your window. I really like the idea of it as a concept, man, and hard to pull off. And maybe you can do a bit of splitting the difference where you can make a move at the deadline and still do stuff like that. Lord knows you got the 11 picks and you got the extra 3rd rounder next year too as well. So, you got a lot of ammunition to play with on that and certainly plenty of cap space to do whatever you see fit.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, if you get Crosby, that probably means you're losing somebody down the line. Like now you can't extend AJ Barner. Now you maybe won't be able to extend a Gray Zabel. There's probably going to be a price to pay. And you do have to be mindful of that when you're doing something like this. So I guess the question I would have would be, what's the price on the other side? Like I'm okay with not extending AJ Barner if that's the cost. But once you start getting into like Barner and maybe a Gray Zabel, then it starts to be like, I don't know. I don't know because Crosby's almost 30, right?
It's a good point, man. It's a great point. You're right. You're getting to that place cap wise where, especially once we get a potential extension of a Williams and Witherspoon in place, and you're already kind of middle of the road with cap space next year as it stands, that you are getting a little bit of place if we just don't have space for days now with that kind of deal added onto the books because he is going to want a new contract. You saw it with Garrett the second he got there to LA. You're putting something else together at that point. So, it's another key part of this to take into account is who you might lose by bringing them on in the long term. And that's why it's such an interesting proposition with Crosby because there's so many, the draft capital, the alternative directions you can go, the alternative of cost to the team as far as those players like you just mentioned. it's a little more complicated than just simply adding on a great player.
Yeah. Little curveball here. What if you get to about the deadline, the Colts are sucking, they don't have a first rounder because of the Sauce Gardner or Ahmad Gardner trade, excuse me, and they're willing to trade Laiatu Latu? What if that's your big deadline trade instead of Max Crosby? Because he's younger, still going to be on the rookie deal. You might extend him at the end of the season, but he'll have 2 years left on that rookie deal. So it's a little bit easier to fit in. Like, would you be into that?
What are you giving up?
Probably something similar to what you would give up for Crosby. You'd probably go for either first and second and, throw in like a Nwosu or 2 firsts, or probably similar to Crosby.
I don't think you're wrong, number one, on that. But I ask that because what I would rather do is I'd rather take an extra 3rd round pick and just go get Jared Verse. Like, you're going to pay both the guys. They're both going to want their money. Latu's going to want his money. Latu's a good pass rusher. I don't know if he's a pure fit from power rushing and what you want in this defense per se. I do like him, but Verse would be a perfect fit to the defense as far as the way he plays and goes about his business, his mentality, the style of way he goes about it. I think that would all fit in seamlessly. Now, again, you're going to have to pay him too, but we're in this predicament with all these guys. And I like Latu. I guess I don't like the thought process. I give up all those picks and I'm turning around and giving Latu a $35 million a year deal. I don't think I've seen enough from Latu. I didn't feel from Latu last year when we were playing the Colts. Like, I'm feeling this guy's presence on the field. And if I'm paying you $35 million, I want to feel your presence. I want to know you're out there. And I think Latu does have some moments where he goes quiet. I think he does have moments where he kind of just becomes a pass rusher. And I don't know, I'm not sure on that one. I like him, so I'm not anti him, but you're right on the cost. And that's where it just gets a bit pricey for me with the Colts.
The appeal would just be he's younger than Crosby. So you could look at him as like a long-term building block of a Super Bowl championship team. Whereas Crosby would be kind of like, you got a couple years and then we'll see, especially with his knee issues already kind of starting to make you wonder.
Yeah, no, it is a good point. And part of why I like to go back to Verse 2 on this is you get the young option there as well, with the guy that's still, early on in his career. You're not getting a guy kind of there nearing sort of the end on that. But it's going to be an interesting situation in our approach because we have all those draft picks, and John, with him and his penchant to already trade, and the times where he just has his normal allotment of picks, he's willing to throw them to the wind. When he's got the extras, it's burning a hole in his wallet right now, Brendan, to do something at some point here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, maybe it ends up being like you trade a 6th rounder for Kayvon Thibodeau and the Giants pay most of his salary, and maybe you'd still get an impact from that. Like, if you wait till the deadline and the Giants suck, they might give them away, and you could end up getting a decent impact for giving up almost nothing. Like, we could still end up going that way instead. So I'm going to keep an open mind on that.
Agreed. I mean, look, we got Rashid Shaheed essentially for peanuts at the end of the day last year when you really consider the draft picks and where those positions were for those draft picks at the end of the day, where it's essentially a 5th and a 6th almost, with how it's situated. HHG, personally, I don't like us playing on Christmas. Thank you for all your support today, HHG. I'm also not a big fan of NFL expanding into Christmas.
Yeah, they're trying. Pretty soon they're going to have games every day, and I just don't see it as necessary. I don't understand it. Like, no, I think they should be trying to expand differently. Like, they should go to an 18-game season and then give every team 2 bye weeks to stretch the season out a little bit more. And maybe get rid of one of the preseason games as well. I don't know, but the expansion of games in that manner has kind of become a little bit annoying to me. Yeah, but I do think there are things they can do to monopolize more time during the season that would be good.
Yep, I agree with you, man. They're getting a little bit greedy on this, and there's other ways of doing this. I like having a couple of days off during the week to kind of discuss what's happened, go back and rewatch other games that you can catch during Sunday. It's a little bit much right now, but the NFL's going this direction. What are you going to do, man? Yeah. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. What would Nicky Manwari need to do to win Defensive Player of the Year, Brendan?
I think he'd have to be like the super Swiss Army knife, where you have a bunch of interceptions and a bunch of sacks and a bunch of tackles. Like, who was the last safety to win Defensive Player of the Year? It was Troy Polamalu, I think.
No, the guy you're thinking of Woodson.
Yeah, well,
Charles Woodson had a defensive player of the year with the Packers, and he was playing as a slot for them mainly that season.
Right. Yeah. Charles Woodson would be another good example. Palomalu. I'm trying to think of another safety that won it in recent memory, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I would say that he would need the sack leader to not have a dominant season. It would have to be like one of those years where Trey Hendrickson leads the league in sacks, but it's like 16 and he's not really that great, so nobody gets that excited about him. Because if somebody like Myles Garrett has 25 sacks, the race is over. Like it's obviously going to be that guy. So you would need a year like that, and then you would just need to be the ultimate Swiss Army knife from the slot, which I think he can do it. I don't know if he'll do it this year, but I think if you have like 5 interceptions and 6 sacks and force 3 or 4 fumbles in a weaker year, that would do it.
Yeah, I would take those factors at hand to give you perspective, Jeffrey, on the season Charles Woodson had. He had 9 interceptions in 2009, 9 interceptions. He had 74 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. 3 of those interceptions were returned for touchdowns. So a pretty over-the-top type season for a guy operating in the one guy that we have that's won the DPOY. You got to put a tremendous year together. 5 interceptions and 2 sacks and a bunch of bundles of tackles and good coverage ain't going to get it done. It's going to require you to put up sparkling stats, and some of this has to do with the prejudicial nature of the fact that the defensive player of the year leans towards the guys that get sacks. You get a lot of sacks, you're the man. It's kind of a silly way of looking at it. It's why the reward to me doesn't carry as much weight, because it doesn't really take everything into account as much, though Surtain got the other year when he didn't necessarily have as much of that productivity. But I think he'd have to produce a lot to get there. I don't think to just kind of like NBA box scoring it, where it's like 3 interceptions and 3 sacks and a couple forced fumbles and 75 tackles and this many passes defensed and highly rated by PFF. Like that wouldn't get it, even though that'd be an amazing year and you'd be like, that he was great. It wouldn't quite be enough, because you just have to go above and beyond to get that award.
Yeah, and what happened with the year that Surtain won it is the sack leader was Trey Hendrickson, who had like 16, and everybody knew he wasn't actually that good. He was just hunting the quarterback on a bad team. So he wasn't going to win it. So it kind of gave clearance for somebody else to get it, like Surtain. So that's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. And you guys have just been tremendous. I haven't been able to catch up on our donations, and we are 2 hours and 16 minutes in the show, and we haven't even been able to get to the preview yet here. So you guys in mid-season form, I really appreciate all of you guys for that support. Which players' knockout would hurt us most?
I mean, you always kind of default to saying the quarterback in these circumstances, right? You always just assume that the quarterback has the most impact when he goes off the field versus any other player, because we've seen this team survive short stints without Witherspoon or Eamon Worry or Murphy over the last couple of years. So I kind of want to say Darnold, but there's another part of me that wants to say like Witherspoon, because I understand how important he is to the defense, but the team survived without him for 5 games last year. So I think I say Darnold.
Yeah, I think that Brennan talks through this Dogzilla well in the respect of what I think it really does come down to as an answer of this, and speaks to the strength of the team, is that there really isn't a fundamental player that this all is hinging upon. You can survive with all these guys, and that includes Darnold when you put a guy that I think is very capable behind him in Drew Lock. So, I don't think that there's a guy that's really on the, I mean, quite frankly, just to not try to not give you an answer, but I just don't think there is a guy in this roster that gets knocked out and then now you're incapable of getting to the promised land. And yes, that would include Sam Darnold. Maybe this is some of my still faith in a guy like Drew Lock. But the thing with this as well is that you're a team that runs the ball as high a rate as anybody in the NFL. And because you play the defense and the special team style that you do, you're in a position to be able to run that ball a lot of the time. And that's going to benefit any quarterback that's back there taking snaps and having their pass attempts limited. I mean, Drew Lock, with pass attempts limited against the Philadelphia Eagles in their prime a couple of years ago, beat them at home. Right? So this all comes down to those supporting factors can elevate quarterback play. I love what Darnold's done. I think he's going to be even more confident this year. I think he's going to be even better this year. But I don't think there's one player that gets knocked out in this team and you're now you can't get there. There is no way to get to that promised land, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think Drew Lock could beat the Rams. I think maybe he could beat mid-level teams. I think the Drew Lock would have beaten the Niners in the playoffs last year. Remember when Darnold had the oblique scare and we were wondering if maybe Drew Lock was going to play in the divisional round? Lock would have won that game. I don't have much doubt about that. And I'm not just saying that because the game was 41-6. I'm saying it because I actually think that where the teams were at that point, Lock could have won it. But I don't think he could beat a really good team. I would have my doubts about that.
I think that's fair. I think it remains to be seen. That, to your point, Dogzilla, which one hurts you the most? Losing your quarterback would hurt the most. I think you can overcome. I think you could overcome all of them. And I think with Drew Lock, there would be questions, and he'd have to prove it like Sam had to prove it himself. You got to show me you can do it. Until I see it, I'm not going to take for granted the fact that it will be done. So, that will be on him, but he's got the talent to do it. And Drew Lock, at this point, if he came into starting lineup right now, would have by far the best situation he was walking into than he's ever had in his entire career in any of the opportunities that he's been given to start. And he's been given a lot of bad places to start in the times that he has started, bad situations in times he started. So, we'll see with that on that, but I might have a little more, faith on Drew.
Yeah.
Jay Melfair. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say real quick. It is worth noting that Darnold did not play well in the Super Bowl last year, really, and we won by 16 points. So there is some reason to believe that a Drew Lock level quarterback could still win big games.
Yeah. Amen. Jay Melfair, thank you for the $2 donation. What's considered a great season for Riley Mills?
6 sacks. I think that's probably the main thing I'm thinking about because I think he's mostly going to be a passing down player because he is undersized. Something like that.
Yeah, I think and for me, beyond just the statistical drive of this Jay Melfair, it's that to have a great season for him is I see him as a guy that can develop into a Zach Allen type player for the Denver Broncos. I think that he's got a lot of that to his game. And so I want to see a guy that starts to develop into that guy in a consistency standpoint when he's on the field. He's always going to be in the rotation this year unless there's injury. He's not going to get the market opportunity to go out there and set the world on fire because of how stacked up you are. But can he show that type of player when he is out there in his effectiveness? Can the waves situation you're trying to drive as a team where it's waves of pass rushers, we go to the second group, we don't miss a beat. Like I go from Leonard Williams to Riley Mills and you're going to feel the same pressure rate. You're going to still feel that problem that he's in on the inside. You're not going to get to catch your breath. That's what I want to see from him. And if he's doing that, even if it's on somewhat of a limited snap basis, because he is going to be a lot of times the fourth defensive tackle in this rotation, that for me would be an outstanding spot of saying then he's on his way to being to that great point. And you're going to know when you feel it, much like you felt it in that bull rush in the Super Bowl. It's like, whoa, a guy that's a, day 3 guy that's just coming off an ACL, that's probably just a fringe NFL player, probably doesn't make that kind of play in the Super Bowl. It speaks to, and we saw more flashes of it beyond that through last year in the little small sample size of snaps we got from him. But that would be a great year to me if he can start to show that kind of player on the field consistently to what I think he can be. And I think he's got a lot of upside to him. So to get to that great side, I've got a pretty high mark. He's got to hit there, Brendan.
Yeah. I mean, if you can let Jaron Reed get to the end of the season with some gas left in the tank because you took up a lot of those snaps that he would have played, that's pretty stellar.
Absolutely. Just, he doesn't have to get to that point where it'll be maybe a year or two from now where we're going to really be relying on him, but just start to give us some more of the building block on what you showed us the flashes of last year and led the team to tell us on the day they drafted you that they had a top 50 grade on you and believe that you would have been an early second round pick if you had been healthy and hadn't gotten injured in the final game of college, as you did have occur to him.
Right.
Well, thank you guys. We got through the donos there. And Jay, thank you for all that. Dogzilla, Jeffrey, appreciate all of you guys on there. Me as well for the $100 donation drop. You guys are very kind to both me and Brendan, and it is very much appreciated. We're going to look a little bit at this upcoming game of the Cowboys on Saturday, Brendan. And most of the time, folks, we're going to get into some real specific items when looking at these matchups, key matchups, look a little statistically where these teams have been at. But this is preseason. We're not seeing the starters. We don't know who the Cowboys are going to be trotting out there. First preseason game at that. We know we're going to see a lot of backups. So more of the outlook for us in preseason is going to be more in talking about these games of what we're kind of looking for and knowing that, look, you're not going to look for all the things you're looking for in the regular season, but what are the key things that you're looking for within this game to give us some signs that this team is moving in the right direction. be it offensively or replicating what they did last year, Fleury and all that. What are some of the notable items at the front of your list that you're really keeping in mind?
Well, hopefully we get to see a little Caleb Downs. I'll say that. I know we won't get to see a lot of the better Cowboys players, but hopefully we get a little Caleb Downs. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
But on the Seahawks side, since I can only assume that Jadarian Price is not going to play because he hasn't practiced lately, and apparently he's not practicing today. I want to see what's up with Emmanuel Wilson because there were a lot of people who weren't sure he was going to make this team or not, but the things I've heard so far have been good. Sounds like this is a game where he's going to get a lot of opportunity because Jacardia Wright's also hurt. So you've got Emmanuel Wilson and you've got Justin Jones, who we all know is not going to make the team, and Velus Jones Jr., who is also very unlikely to make the team. So going to be a lot of Emmanuel Wilson, and I think he has a role he can play on this team that is of value. So I want to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm going to be checking out it's the second year guys coming into this that we're looking for to step forward. We talked a little bit earlier in the show on this, but I mean, my eyes are going to be locked in on Torrey Horton on offense and seeing how he's moving out there running routes when he's out on the field. Riley Mills, of course, as we just talked about him, looking again back to Jay Melfair's question, can I start to see more of that in here in training camp? He's going to go up against guys that are not maybe the starters. Can he go out and dominate these kind of guys in preseason and start to really give us those indicators of what we're hoping this guy can be? Elijah Arroyo was a guy that really frustrated me last year in the respect of not that he didn't have a better year just on him. It was as much on the team and on Kubiak. And one of the places that Kubiak didn't get any real shade for that I thought at times he should, where it's like even early on in the year when Arroyo was healthy, you didn't seem to have much of a plan for integrating him into the passing attack. You didn't have specialized routes for him to really run. It was just kind of like here and there over games, he'd kind of come in and come out as a pass catcher. And it just sort of seemed like he was a forgotten man on this team. And I know you don't pass the ball a lot, but you got this guy in the second round and you take a guy in the second round. I want my team to actually have a plan in place for how to, utilize that guy. Hopefully they show a little bit more signs of that, especially with Fleury and having his tight end background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be another very intriguing subplot here, how much Fleury uses tight ends, because you would assume he would use it even a little bit more than Kubiak because of his background. I'd say Milroe as well. Very interesting to see what he does because he's probably going to play a lot. And I wonder if this team would be, if they see stuff they like from Milroe, are you willing to trade Drew Lock or let Drew Lock go and let Milroe just be the backup because you think he's ready for that? I would be interested to see what it would take for that and if we get that in this preseason.
My theory on this, and it's a theory, Brennan, is I still think that he's not to where Drew Lock is. And when you're talking about a Super Bowl ready-made roster and you're going to that backup guy, there can't be a drop-off. It's just too much. And that's not saying then that Jalen can't progress or be really good in this preseason. What I'm saying is I think that there's more of a draw at this point, especially with the success of Sam Darnold, to increase the value of Milroe in a trade. And to be able to, there was rumors even of potentially us trying to kick the tires with the Cardinals on, hey, what if we gave you our first round pick and we throw in Milroe? Can we come up there and maybe go get Jeremiah Love? I don't know if there was any truth to that rumor that was coming out around draft time, but that's what I think John would love to see here is, can I have increased the stock of Milroe over the past couple of years? Like he goes out, bam, just has dynamic preseason play, right? Starts to come back on the radar for a team that kind of liked him in the draft. That team starts to get open to him at some point in time, be either now, between the trade deadline, even in the next offseason, to where now he becomes that commodity where you're getting more for him, essentially, in whatever package you put together, you're getting more for him than what it cost you to take him in the third round, kind of like a stock option. You're sort of kind of cashing in a little bit. Do you think that
I would like that better than trading Locke. I'll say that, but I don't know if that's something they would consider doing. But I would love to get back down to 2 quarterbacks and open up that extra roster spot. I'd love to kind of reset on the whole developmental quarterback thing and maybe get one in next year's draft, which is going to be pretty quarterback rich. And you're going to have a lot of picks. Maybe Brandon Sorsby, because it's a little harder to gamble on sports in this state than other states. Maybe coming to Washington is just what he needs. I don't know.
You got to go to a casino to get it done here. So yeah, you're right. That's how you cut him off.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of guys. The USC guy, Mavayo, you could get another USC quarterback since we had some success with this one. There's a lot of intriguing, like, mid-level quarterbacks in this draft, I think. Chambliss is going to make a lot of people think about Russell Wilson. But yeah, I'd love to do that. I don't know if the team would be willing to do that. I wonder if they still view Milroe as somebody that they can build around long term. But either way, if it clears up a roster spot and allows us to save a little bit of money and maybe even get an asset for the player we get rid of, I'm pretty intrigued by that. So it's all going to come back to what Milroe does in the preseason, right? If he looks good, then either you have confidence in him or somebody else is going to value him enough to trade him. So that's why I'm watching Milroe this preseason, and I think he's going to play a lot in all 3 games.
Yeah, and I hope he does. He needs a lot of run, and I partly for this reason is you get him that kind of spotlight, and he does look good, and teams can start to. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks that have gone out and had lighted up preseasons that can then get teams hot to trot for that player because they're like, "Ooh, he's developed. Ooh, and they might already again like have some of those initial. We kind of liked him in college, but he needs to come along with some stuff, and now they're seeing that stuff come along, and they still got the stuff that they liked from him in college." And that he also has shown some advancement from college, and that you can hope the advancement will continue when we bring him in. I don't think you're getting a first round pick. I want to say that, Brendan, right? Like it's more of like you can take a guy you took in the mid 3rd round and you eventually come back and maybe you get like a late 2nd round, as a flick. And I do think it's probably not going to happen to your point right now between the deadline. This
he'd
is
have
more
to play
of a
really
probably,
well. He'd have to play really well.
He'd have to really well. It's more of a next off season, I think, thing from a John standpoint of, now will be the time to do it. And I like your idea about the development quarterback because, like you say, there's a lot of quarterbacks who'll be fitting in that realm of 3rd to 5th roundish area who have some upside to them. There'll be so many. There's only so many that can be picked early on, and there'll be some that'll be there that with Nika Ivalamia out there with UCLA. That guy looks like Randall Cunningham. Like those kind of guys could become available. So I'm open to that as well, man. I think that's really that's where again. You trade the commodity, you get more for him, you get the development guy that doesn't cost you the 2nd or even the 3rd round pick potentially of what Milroe cost you. Reset that. You got Drew back on the low end contract that will give you a couple $1 million per year. So the quarterback hit stays pretty low, but you still keep him 3 deep. And I think that's a great approach with it.
Yeah. I would love to do that, but it's all moot if Milroe doesn't impress us. So let's hope he does. Other than that, let's see here. Probably not going to see Eamon Wari in this game either because he's just working his way back. Probably no Julian Neal. So maybe Bud Clark, right? Because Bud Clark's the guy who's pushing for that starting job and he'll get it eventually, but could he get it a little bit sooner than we expect if he plays really well? Maybe. Because Clark's the guy who I think is pretty much ready because he played so much in college. So I want to see what's up with him.
Yeah, he'll be an interesting guy also to see how they utilize him. Does he get a lot of snaps into the slot or are they just holding him out there at safety? Because my instinct on this has been that they're going to keep him as an insurance policy for Eamon Wari so that they don't have to bump Devin Witherspoon inside so they can keep Devin to the outside 24/7. At which point you're going to want to give him some snaps in there in live action in that role. So it'll tell us a lot about what they're attempting to do with the utilization of him. To your point as well, how much he's really truly pushing Ty Akata. Or whether or not that's a little bit more of the lip service area of things right now as it stands for what's going to happen when he gets the regular season. I think as well too, Bo Stevens and in general, can this offensive line come out and show us that this thing is rising to become one of the not dominant position groups on the team, but one of the strengths of position groups on this team, both the front line and the backups. Kind of sound like Christian Haynes now comes in there as a second guy in that thing with Bo, probably. I'm guessing as the left guard. Can these guys kind of give us some flashes out there, especially the Nola Teamy out there? Like you should be better with what you're able to bring out going up against their 2s and their 3s with that and really control the line of scrimmage, really be able to open up some running lanes, I would expect for the backs.
Right. And Haynes, like he might not make this team if he doesn't do something this preseason. Like I think he's hanging by a thread because we got guys like Richmond, we got guys like Cable Dew, we got some stuff going on with those 3rd string offensive linemen that I think are pushing Haynes. And Haynes is now getting to the point where he's making non-trivial money because it's his 3rd year. So if Haynes doesn't do something, I think he's out of here.
Yeah, Richmond is the guy that think's really pushing him at that spot, and it just may come down to one of those 2 guys. You never know with how many you might try to hold extra, but you're holding 2 centers. Stevens is probably making the roster at this point. It sounds like Cable Dew's probably on the outside looking in a little bit here. But the tackles are set too deep on either side. I mean, hell, you got a hell of a battle going on between Logan and Kite right now for that final tackle spot, Logan Jones. It's pretty heated right now. And I think you're right. I think Haynes is in precarious territory here as far as whether he makes the roster. And I don't know what to really think about him. I hear no stories about him winning or dominating any reps. I don't hear any 1 days of practice where Haynes really stood out and looked good today. I haven't heard one time with this guy. And if that's the case, you're at that point at the end of training camp where that's just what it is. You do got to kind of just move on. You can't hold on to draft status after, this many years deep into it. For a guy that was supposed to be ready-made, he was supposed to be a guy not like Bradford that was going to take a long time to develop, but like hit the ground running.
Right. It doesn't make a lot of sense. That seemed like a money in the bank pick. The concern with that pick was supposed to be the low ceiling, but
Yeah.
I believed in the floor, but I
Yeah.
don't think he's going to make the team right now. I do actually think that either Richmond or Cable do, or both will make the team instead of him. And I don't see any room for Haynes at that point. The only way I think Haynes makes this team is if he figures out how to snap the ball, and then we trade Oluwatimi to the Titans or something like that. That's the only thing I can see happening.
Just doesn't seem like they got the commitment to really putting him at center, though. It seems like he has still been kind of more kept at guard this year. They did a little smattering of center snaps last year before the shoulder injury or pec injury came into play, but just doesn't seem like they're all that. It just doesn't seem like they really got a lot of faith in this long term. I hope I'm wrong, because you'd love to see the kid, tap into it. It's supposed to be a good zone blocking dude. Like it hasn't been there. So I'm maybe watching him a little bit like a hawk as well, when it comes to some of the action out there. Tyrese Knight, another guy to keep an eye on, I think. Having a tremendous camp, utilization of him off the edge a lot, from what I'm hearing. A lot of him out there at that wide 10. And like the thought process, Brendan, of a way that you can kind of trip teams up is that everybody's expecting nickel 24/7 from Seattle. What if you occasionally, week in and week out, trotted out some base 3-4 packages for teams, and as a methodology of approach to then at times get Tyrese Knight on the field? You slide Emanwari back to safety, you put him out there in the base and 3-4 looks with Tyrese Knight, just in certain matchups and certain places where it can be advantageous, where you're not as worried about the coverage blows on the back end by going to defensively base. And you got the linebackers to do that right now. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Could be fun.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I mean, people kind of forget that he was the starter last year, and he mostly lost that job because he was having that heart issue. And I know Drake Thomas came in and played really well, and we're all happy with him, and he's pretty clearly going to be the starter. But there is definitely a part of this where it's like, wait a minute, Tyrese Knight lost his job because of injury. And you usually don't lose your job because of injury in the NFL. Usually you get that job back. And I don't think that he will, but it does kind of emphasize the fact that there's a reason why he won the job in the first place.
Yeah. And I think he had the best season for a will linebacker since KJ Wright. And that's not nothing, I don't think, in what that performance was. Even last year, Brendan, he was your highest rated off-ball linebacker on 300 snaps, not on like 50 snaps, right? And it's not, 1,000 snaps for defensive players. About, if you have a good long season, that's what you're going to be in full for a linebacker. 300 snaps, highest rated off-ball linebacker, with Ernest having a second team All-Pro year. I'm very interested to see maybe if Tyrese has got a little bit of something he can bring to the table here for this team this upcoming season. The team's trying to find creative ways, it sounds like, in order to utilize him. Any other items to you jump out in this game?
Well, like I said, Julian Neal's not playing, I don't think. I would be very surprised if he did, so I wouldn't go there. But Pritchett, because Pritchett supposedly has had a good camp. And Pritchett going one way or the other might influence whether or not we do the Terrion Arnold thing. If we like what we see from Pritchett, maybe that pushes us away from Arnold. And if we don't, then maybe that pushes us towards him. So this is kind of put up or shut up for Pritchett, right? And I've always liked him. I've always been a fan of his, but we haven't seen that much of him yet. So I would say Nehemiah Pritchett.
I love him, man. I think he's a guy I'll be watching closely, see where the tackling's at, especially. I think the guy's got the coverage stuff unlocked. Just want to see the tackling come forward a little bit forward with him a little bit more. But he is an interesting guy to watch. And that corner room's a hell of a fight, hell of a battle got going on. Dansby doing some stuff right now on the back end of the roster in practice, really showing up. Sounds like we've got some pretty fierce competition at the wide receiver position with both your whites, and then you've got Ontario, what's his name? The out of nowhere guy that was like, I forget his name. He's on Hard Knocks a couple times the other night, but a couple back end receivers here that are duking it out as well. So you're gonna have some pretty hardy fights there. Gonna be
Montori Foster. Is that
Montori Foster? Yeah. That's it. There we go. I was close. I was in the vicinity. So some real good battles to watch there on this, because I think everything is really set with the rest of this roster. The fights and the battles are really not down to a lot of many positions. It's really just a vacant few. But beyond just the individual players, Brendan, This is a team that, as much as any team in the NFL, is going to lead with physicality, violence. They have it on their shirts. It's how we want to operate. I want to feel that from this team in game one. This is how you win. You're not in a finesse team. You're not a pure X's and O's team. You're not going to confuse everybody kind of team. We misdirect them this way, then we go that way with it. We're going to come downhill at you. We're going to hit you in the face. We're going to hit you in the mouth. That's our standard. That's who we are. And we're that universally on both sides of the football. I want to feel that from game one up against this Dallas team. They've got some good testing ground when they've got the starters out there. I don't know if it's as much with their backups and that they can provide that same kind of test, but that's what I really want to see, is you really, taking it to them physically, because that's just inherently was there with you every week as a football team and showed up every week on tape.
Yeah. I'd say that about sums up everything that I want to see Saturday. I'm trying to think of something else. Like you did good to bring up Foster, by the way, because that was one I had forgotten about, but we've heard a lot of good things about him so far in camp, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah. It sounds like he's done plenty enough for the receiving portion of it. It might just come down to the question of, because that last receiver spot is all about how are you as a gunner? How are you a blocker? And these are elemental parts to this team, being that we want to have the best special teams unit in football. So no small factor into you making the roster or not. You might have a guy beat way above and beyond as far as the receiving stuff. But then if you're sucking wind when it comes to what you do in the special teams realm, it may not be enough to make the roster at that point. So we'll see how he does in that area. And if he can, maybe that'll secure him the spot. Corey Coombe finishing us up with a $5 donation. I want to thank everybody today, man. We had so many donations. Like I said, you guys are in mid-season form here, and both me and Brendan really appreciate all of your guys' support to both of our channels, allowing us both to get to do what we get to do, which is do this full time. Corey, you included in that. Thanks for the $5. I don't get players wanting to be the highest paid at their position. You're going to be that for 6 months at most. In some cases, days.
It is a status symbol. Like there's a reason why when Dak signed his contract a few years ago, he made sure he got 1 million more guaranteed than Deshaun Watson did. Like, it's not just a coincidence, right? They want the ego boost of saying that I have the record, even if it's just for a couple days. But even beyond that, even beyond just breaking the record, they also want to get as much money as they can while they can, which I think is understandable. So I don't begrudge them that. Just, you got to be a realist at some point, and you got to realize, well, I can maybe break the record, but I can't break the record by 20%. Like, that's not how this works. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail.
I completely get where you're coming from, Corey. I do agree with Brendan on this. I find myself torn different directions. NFL players' careers are so short, and you got to get what you can get while you can get it while the getting's good. So I can't get mad at a guy for trying to get every last dollar he can get. At the same point in time, I think there's some short-sightedness to it. I think if you're coming in as a player and you're going to wreck a cap, or you're going to come in like Sam Darnold next year, like Baker's doing right now, saying, I want $60 million. And you're playing tone deaf to the fact that this is going to impel you and hinder you from being able to do your job at your best, because they can't build as good a roster. This isn't empty dialogue. This is reality. You take that money, you're going to impede yourself. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. And there's a little bit of the short-sighted where you're getting the money now, you're skinning the sheep, but you could sit there and shave him on a yearly basis. And by shave him, I mean consistently be a winner, consistently winning Super Bowls. What does that do for you in your post-career? Whether you're a quarterback or whether you were a cornerback, you will be celebrated. You will be on shows. You will be an analyst. You will have sponsorship opportunities. Now, it takes the collective to kind of buy into that to get to that stage of things, but that's going to be one of the key places that we'll see here with the Seahawks team. I think JSN's gotten it. I think Derek Hall's gotten that point. I think Abraham Lucas has gotten that point. I think Charles Cross has kind of gotten that point. Will Devin. That's the part we'll see. But that's the part where I do think, I understand you want all your money, but I also understand the team saying, hey, no. The cap is real. The fans trying to say the cap isn't real and it's all funny money. No, it is. It is real. And like the people that said with the Eagles, for instance, Brendan, well, the Eagles don't ever, yeah, they did. AJ Brown, and part of the trade of AJ Brown this offseason has to do with starting to get ahead of contract situations. And you weren't able to sign Josh Sweat. You weren't able to sign Millen for Williams, and partly because you put the cap in the position you put it in. So play dumb with your cap. How's the saying go? Win dumb games, win bad prizes, whatever the stupid.
Yeah,
win stupid.
No, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah, and that's what happens if you allow your cap to be pulled over the top. So I completely want to be the next paid. Devin, and I'm even willing in my position go even further beyond, because I think if you're the next paid, you should be no more than $1 million. Okay, you make $1 million more per year than the guy behind you. Because like he says, within days and weeks, that'll be upended. It's not like we're waiting 3 years till the next guy gets the highest paid mark. But when you start getting to 6, 7, 8 million per year over the top, well, now you're making this hard for us to get this done. And I don't know that this is that way with Devin. We don't know where the negotiations are. The Hard Knocks was certainly sensitive to the reports coming out that he had turned down being the highest paid. John was make sure to come in and put a kibosh on that one. So that was good to see. But that's where I do land pretty firmly on. If a team says, look, we're not going to go and overpay a guy to that amount, I get it. I understand. There's a cost to be paid here. There's a price when you do go over the top.
Yeah. And John has always done a really good job of that. I can't think of, we've been in bad cap situations before, but it's mostly been because of dead cap, because we trade players like Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Geno Smith. It's not because we gave out ridiculous contracts that we later regretted or anything like that. So it's a little different, I think.
And you offset that stuff, right? You offset it with second and third round picks. So there was actually something gained back to the flip side of the loss.
Right. And it, again, I think almost all players are like that. I think almost all players want to get pretty much all the money they can. When they do leave money on the table, it's very small amounts. Like Josh Allen with his extension was saying, I left a little bit of money on the table. It's like, yeah, little. Like if you look at how much he got, it wasn't that much. Come on. Like stop bragging about something that isn't worth bragging about. Come on, dude. But I would hope that in the case of Witherspoon, I'm not asking him to take a discount or anything. We're neither of us are asking for that. We're just asking for him to, be normal about this. And maybe he is being normal about this, and this is all just drama for Hard Knocks, but there's no extension done yet, and I sure expected one to happen by now.
To your point on that, you go to your Buffalo organization, you're making that case to Josh to say, well, now we can take this money and go, well, you've never shown yourself to be an organization that's willing to spend the purse strings. You're always claiming kind of a poverty status a little bit. There's always a restriction to how far you're willing to push and go over the top. So when you make that sales pitch to Josh, he's like, yeah, sure. Right. It's all on me. Let me get my cape ironed out and prepared. Right. I go to somebody in the Raiders organization, the Dolphins organization. I try to make the same argument. It's going to fall in deaf ears, and rightfully so, because it's an empty promise. When I'm in an organization that's won a Super Bowl 10 years ago, reset the whole stack again with a whole new stack, just won another Super Bowl with that same general manager in place, with their same process in place. That's not an empty promise to that player to say that in you taking this discount, we spend our money. We're top 10 in bottom line money spent over the past 3 seasons in the NFL. And that's with a team at that time that hadn't necessarily been contending, that was in a stage of just trying to rebuild through. The proof is in the pudding on this one. So while some teams you could say as a player, like, that's empty talk, you're trying to just get me into the discount, that whole like legacy thing and my blah, blah, blah. Go talk to Marshawn Lynch. Go talk to Richard Sherman. Go talk to Cam Chancellor about their post-career opportunities on being Super Bowl champions and what that's meant when you're able to. It's a different level to those guys that just had a great career and then head on out the exit doors. And I'd ask Devin if he was considering this to really think about that in this frame of mind if he's pushing the envelope. Only if he's pushing the envelope. But if he was pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Tell Hassan, thank you for the $5 donation. We'll probably put a cap on right here. He says, imagine the salary cap was like the NBA. Fully guaranteed money, and second apron, it might go bad for you, could lose picks and not sign anyone. Hashtag go Hawks.
Yeah, the NBA second apron salary cap system is like, nobody wants to touch that. Like every team in the league, doesn't matter how rich the owner is, doesn't matter how big the franchise is, they are terrified of that second apron.
What is apron? I'm not aware of this.
Yeah, basically you have a cap, and then you have, and it's a soft cap, but when you go above the cap to a certain amount, there are certain punishments that apply. And then there's like another level you can go up, and you can still go up there, but there's another set of punishments where like you lose your mid-level exception. I think they take away picks. I don't know all the exact details, but basically the NBA has constructed a scenario where you have a soft cap, but the punishments for going too far above that cap are so bad that nobody wants to do it. It costs so much money. It's like you pay a tax to the league for every dollar you go over the apron. I don't know the exact details, but I know that nobody's messing with it.
Yeah. And I'm glad the NBA doesn't have, or NFL just, it'd be great for the players to have the guaranteed contracts. You feel for them. I think the NFL has done a lot. The Players Association has done a lot to try to get these guys with pension after a certain amount of years and to try to get them a little bit more taken care of in their post-football life. But it's just a sport that you can't guarantee the deals. There's too many injuries. There's too many problems that would cause from that to why they can't do it. And you'd love to do it, but just it's the nature of this sport and how it's the short life of the careers and all of that, that it's just hard to pull that off.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's good for basketball either. Like, was it good for basketball when Rashard Lewis was making $20 million sitting on the bench for the last 3 years of that deal? Like, I don't think so. And that's why the NBA has done the amnesty clause, I think twice, maybe 3 times, where they give every team the ability to wipe one contract off their cap, because over time, every team accumulates at least one contract that is incredibly punishing. Like, every team has a Gilbert Arenas or a Rashard Lewis, or you get what I'm getting at here.
Oh yeah. It's a sport of the mailed-in player. I mean, more than I would even say with baseball, where the guys go wrong in baseball, and that's sometimes just the nature of that sport, where it's like it's like Cal this year. You know, there's just some years where it's just like you can't hit the ball after you were just destroyed the year before. It's like that's how baseball is brutal that way. But basketball, you have a lot of guys that you get the feeling of like, is this guy is checked in and connected, and as like, you know, every time Harden wants to get traded, he starts to get fat. You know, it's just like, that's kind of the mentality a little bit that like exists throughout the league a little bit, of just kind of, once you get your money, you just kind of ease back and chill because they can't do nothing about it. So I'm glad the NBA's got that ability to take the bad one off the books in that way, because there is no, like, you're not held to any kind of standard once you have your contract as a player. It's kind of like you can do whatever.
Right.
Appreciate you, Talahassan. Well, thank you guys for all the support today. You too, Talahassan, for the double dip donation. Folks, do me this favor if you can. Please do get subbed on up if you're watching from my channel over to Brendan Nelson's channel at Seahawks Brendan Nelson here on YouTube, as well to my side. If you're watching from Brendan's side as well, please do sub up here. We'll be doing this on a weekly basis with you guys. Really good to have you back here, Brendan, and getting this cooked back up onto what is going to be hopefully another. It's going to be hard to top last season, brother, but I'd like to see them try.
Yeah.
I'm here to see another run of it. I certainly would take another run of it. So we're gonna have a great season with you folks here. We could already tell you guys are in mid-season form on that angle of it, certainly with the donations. Absolutely unbelievable support to both of our channels. And it is really, really, really much appreciated. So we will be back next week in looking at the Titans, and also at that time, probably talking a little bit of, I believe we got an inter-squad practice at that time on top of this preseason game that was undertaken.
And those tend to get violent, so we will be seated.
That's right. Hopefully they got they're taping up the hands and getting them all ready, because you know it's going to go down. It's happening at every camp. So we'll see how that goes as well. But we will keep you tuned into all the action and let you know what's going on. A little bit of another Hard Knocks episode as well. So a lot to turn over next week. We will be back very soon. But until next time, folks, please don't ever forget, you're hearing the hype. You're hearing about Rams. You're hearing about, fluke and luck and all that. Don't listen to none of that. Listen to us. Listen to what we're telling you. We were telling you true last year. We're going to tell you true again. Don't you ever forget, your team's on the precipice to repeat once again. So always remember, always go Hawks.
Go Hawks.